my stream. Quick note for my guys. We're on the ACG podcast today. That's ACG up there. Is that right? Up there. Yes. There we go. And yeah, we have been trying to do this for over a half a year. A couple
no,
years.
I think it might have been 2 years ago when I first started talking
about
to you.
2 years.
Yeah.
So it's finally happening. And yeah, we're here today to talk about, well, you know what? How about you introduce your podcast?
Yeah, we'll be talking about games. First of all, I want to say I appreciate everybody showing up for this. We finally did get Cohh on. It has been a while. I remember distinctly one of the first games I talked to him about, and that's when I wanted to get him on the podcast, because we were talking about a D&D game. It was an action/one. I don't remember the name of the title, but it was pretty rough. And I reviewed it.
Shadows of Mordor or something? Oh, no, that was the good one. There was the not so great one that came out that everyone was pretty excited for, and it let everyone down pretty hard.
Yeah, and you were reviewing it, or you were streaming it, and I was reviewing it, and I was tweeting you while you were live, and I'm like, is this as rough as like I think it is? And it was awesome to see the difference of like how you have to do something live versus me being able to sort of cultivate the video. And then we also have Kidsmoove on, who I got to meet on the Iron Lords podcast. What was that, last Sunday?
Yeah, last week.
Sunday, 5 friggin' hours.
No, 2 Sundays ago.
2 Sundays ago? Okay, 2 Sundays ago. For 4 or 5 hours, we sat down and we talked. And because of the Iron Lords podcast and how busy it is, I wanted to have him on so I could just sort of get his ideas directly, piped into my brain. We're going to be talking about PlayStation 5 Pro and its cost and what that means for the future. Space Marine, Astrobot, all the games. You guys have a bunch of questions. Always, not only I thank the guests, but of course Johnny, because he's here, constantly here, no matter what.
Oh,
which I
thank you, Chad.
Can't get rid of me.
Dark Alliance. That was the game.
Was it Dark Alliance? It was Dark Alliance.
Yeah.
Listen, I like to crap on games. I'm not going to crap on that one. I'll just say that it was an experience to be able to, you know how like the embargoes a lot of times are different. Like a review embargo, they'll be like, oh, you can only show 18 minutes of video. Streamers go a day later, or streamers can do an hour, but they can't do more. And I know you have special deals, but I'm saying overall, we get these ones. And to me, it was just really interesting to see like the difference and how you had to deal with it and how I had to deal with it. And you were playing it live. And I got to say, your professionalism sort of abounds, man, because I was just watching you play it, and and I'm not saying you thought it was bad. I'm saying you were dealing with things that I was dealing with in my review, and you did a phenomenal job, far better than I would have been able to do live. That's a question that we have, so I'm just going to ask you the first one, which is there a game? And this is Johnny who asked this, our Johnny.
That's what inspired, funny enough, dude, that's exactly the game that inspired the question, because I remember watching Cohh play it. And I thought, dude, there are some frustrations there. Like, it's not smooth to play. Like there were some things. And but yeah, I think you keep a cool vibe. You don't get the frustration. Like, get to the to the stream itself.
The question was, Cohh, is there a game that has been the hardest to cover or frustrating to cover? Is there a game that sticks out in your mind, even if it's just the embargo?
There have been situations in different projects that have been very frustrating, or at times like one thing that was very frustrating, but also amazing. So it was kind of like a hand-in-hand thing. Was getting halfway through the first iteration of Pathfinder Kingmaker and essentially have this 100-hour playthrough fall apart due to bugs. Now, to Owlcat's the developers, to their benefit, these guys were watching my stream during the day, making emergency patches at night, and then giving me Steam beta codes to download the fixes
for the
bugs I had the day before. So what we came up with on the stream is they were essentially like, they're save scumming. This was dev scumming. They were like doing their best to keep the playthrough going as best we could. And to their credit, they did great. But we did get to a point where it's just like, it was a spaghetti mess. Too many things weren't working. And it was very frustrating because I wanted to keep going. And also I realized that you were enjoying the game, but like there were multiple storylines that were open, and like it was kind of falling apart in front of me. And I put 100 hours into it at that point, and I knew that if I went and did something else, like that was it. So that was pretty frustrating. That's a kind of frustration. There are also other kinds of frustration, and that is like, for instance, one of the only times I've canceled a sponsorship during the sponsorship, and it's happened one time. And that was, I learned early in my career, for instance, is I do a lot of sponsored streaming, but that was not a binary switch. That was just not like, oh, I'm not sponsored streaming. Oh, I'm sponsored streaming now. Right. It was a process I had to learn how to do. how it fits me, what to take and not to take, how that process works. And one of the things I learned early, never agree to a long-term sponsorship on a product you aren't sure about.
Right.
So one of the things I do these days is I only take sponsorships for things I know I'm going to try or that I know I want to try. And that way, if I know I want to try something, a couple hours of it isn't that bad. If I try it and it turns out to be terrible, like still 2 hours to explore all of it is still okay. Like that's plenty of time. You start talking about like 4 and 8 hours, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, you know, a Civilization game came out. I was like, oh, Civ. Okay. I haven't played that for like, you know, since like 2 or whatever. I'm sure it'll be fine. It was, I think it was called Beyond Earth. So yeah, it was, wow, they want 16 hours.
Oh, whoa.
Okay. That sounds great. That's a huge amount of sponsor streaming. Okay. Yeah. 2 hours in.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh no.
Yeah.
like I was fighting with the game. I was getting frustrated with mechanics, and here's where I knew it was a problem. One thing about streaming that you learn, especially when you have a consistent community, is that a lot of times when somebody watches you for as long as they do, sometimes they'll pick up on things that you might not. So this is one of the first major cases of my streaming career when my chat was screaming at me like, "Cohh, you're not having fun.
Right.
Stop it."
Yeah.
Like we like watching you enjoy yourself.
Right.
We don't like watching you frustrated and having a rough time with the game. And that was one of the first times that I really realized like me enjoying what I'm doing is frankly at sometimes more important than anything else. Because if I am not putting on a show, if I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, the quality of the show goes down. There are people that pay me every month for a consistent quality show. And if I am doing something to not provide that, especially if I could do something differently, that's on me. Like that's not providing value to that. So that funny enough, that game was one of the most frustrating times I'd had on stream. And I actually ended the stream and for the first like content, I was like, I'm sorry, like please keep all bridges as not on fire as you can, but like let them know I can't keep streaming this. Like I just can't. It's not gonna be good for them. It's not gonna be good for me.
It's interesting because you definitely, and I've definitely watched you for a long time. One of the reasons why you're on is because I do trust. I've checked into this, your desire to do sponsorships in a particular way, because I am pretty vocal that I don't ever do them regardless. But I am a reviewer. Even a preview I don't do. I pay for my own flights and stuff, which a lot of times the companies are like, we can't figure that out. We don't want you to come. And I'm like, all right, whatever. But the worst one I ever did, Cohh, man, 24-hour, let's play, live, No Man's Sky day one. And let me tell you, man, Scotty, if you're still out there, I want to say how much I appreciate you. We had a bunch of people. It was a super popular stream. It was Captains Against Cancer. It was a cancer donation stream because I was like, hey, this is a big deal. This will be fun. And within, 8 hours was fine. And I'm a person who, outside of games, I will stay up for 20 hours playing a game. I'll stay up 20 hours camp. I'll do whatever I do have a lot of energy. So it wasn't a big deal. I was like 24 hours. I do that outside of gaming. Like this is no big deal. But about 18 hours in, I started getting DMs. And what this guy, Scotty, has been a patron since the day the patron opened, and he was pinging me. And he's like, what do you need? And I'm like, what do you mean? What do I need? Like, I need you to quit bothering me, and DMs is what I need. And he's like, no, dude, listen to yourself. Like, you can hear it starting to creep up. It's where you're finding more stuff that's not in the game that they said was going to be, that kind of thing. Which, by the way, No Man's Sky obviously repaired beyond belief. Oh, like no question.
When No Man's Sky came out, it was a collection of ideas at best, and most of them were unfinished.
Yeah, and most of them were unfinished. Yeah,
I was going to ask you, what did you do for 24 hours? Because
I mean, that's the thing, man. No guides. You know how it is. Yeah. Like you don't have a guide either as a reviewer, as a streamer. So I'll have people a week later watch a video and they're like, Pip, I can't believe Carrick didn't know exactly where the crux of horror hating is. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, how would I know that in Hogwarts? Like, I'm playing as a reviewer. I don't know. So what I did was I just flew the hell around a bunch and then got some ships, fought some stuff, and just sort of enjoyed myself as much as I could. But I'm telling you, when I turned that stream off, I was like, I remember I got off the stream and I just said out loud to myself, I was like, never again. Never again. It doesn't matter how good of a like idea I think it is. It'll be like maybe Johnny would do it with me or something where we'll trade off, but I'm not doing that again. Kidsmoove, I know you're just sort of getting into this and you're covering games, but you've definitely reviewed some stuff. Has there been anything super frustrating for you to review or cover? Has there been anything that like Have you found anything you dislike about that kind of thing, or has it all been cake so far?
No, it hasn't. Like, I mean, with me though, and I think this is why I'm probably not as like consistent or as big, is that when I run into a problem, what happens is it's like I just like, all right, I guess this is just not going to be one for me.
Yeah.
I usually don't land the review or the embargo, or I don't make the embargo, which a lot of the times it's more so timing, getting the game not early enough,
Right.
and then kind of trying to really do everything, like, because I'm fighting against obviously time, and then trying to meet the embargo because obviously you want to be when everything's fresh, and but you also want to give a valid point.
Yeah.
And I've been put in positions like that where I was like, yeah, I finished it, but I honestly don't know what happened because I couldn't really dive the way I needed to dive to really explain it. And it just lands me poor reviews. Would land pretty much result into a poor review. But as far as like a lot of the games that I've had issues, I'm trying to think off the top of my head that they generally translated went to me not really actually commit to the review. I would either stop if there's been reviews where I get the game and then I just drop it. I was like, I'm just not having fun with this, and then I send the email, I apologize, dude, I'm sorry, I can't. If I was to submit for something for this, it won't be great, and I don't want to like I never want to be put in a situation where if I'm playing something and I think is like broken, or I know for sure I wouldn't recommend this to anyone.
Sorry, that's my dogs. Yeah, continue.
I don't want to waste like the time to continue on with it. I'm more so like in this situation where I like landing at if average is okay, hey, you ain't got to buy it now, but check it out, buy it on sale or something like that. I'm more so in that area. I'm a go-to for things that are essentially what I guess what the critics would call pretty much like 6 and up, right? Because if I think it's below a 6, I probably haven't finished the game. Unless it's like a guilty pleasure of some sort. Like I had a couple games where like, I know this is going to rate bad, but I actually kind of like it. No, I can't think of, I'm trying to think of a game that have done that where I was like, this is just like so bad, or made a commitment to it. I think, no, like I had some issues with Flintlock, but because I fought through the frustrations that I actually grew to like it. So I was like, all right, I can see this through.
That was me with Days Gone. I hear you.
Yeah, Days Gone. Days Gone. Man, that triggered me. Wow, Days Gone. I will say, what's nice is usually you get them early. I can walk you through how to handle 6 and lower, by the way, if you ever want to, kid, because I find I find all of them to be enjoyable, even if it's milquetoast. But low games can be fun. Low games can be a blast to review because you can, I personally like teasing something stupid in a game. So you can poke at the game, you can poke fun. As long as you're not poking fun at the people who make it. That's like ridiculous. Yeah. You can do that in a podcast if you want. But in the review, you're reviewing the product. You're not like all of the other stuff. I've always been a big fan of separating it. But jumping into the first topic and getting onto super positive stuff, Warhammer. So Warhammer got really good reviews. I was hoping they were going to be mimicked. It seems like they were. It was like 100,000+ playing it on the premium version. Then went to like 230, 250, I think, when it went, when it went live. But I don't think I've seen Cohh's like overall thoughts on this one. Did you?
Well, I made a couple.
Did you?
Like only because this game, in a lot of ways, is I mean, first of all, just to start at the beginning, loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Okay.
I mean, I think they had over 2 million sales. I mean, this game in a lot of ways, I feel, is kind of a love letter to Warhammer fans.
Right.
The way that they respect the IP, the way that they deliver the narrative, the way that they kind of, where every single square inch is just fingerprinted with Warhammer 40K. Makes the whole thing fantastic. Throw in the above average combat system in a wildly above average world and the testosterone fueled space marine, and I mean, it's a recipe for awesome. Yeah. There were numerous times in that game when I would just stop, turn my camera to the left, and just slowly move it across everything, just taking it in. Yeah. And it's rare for that to happen a few times in a game. It is unique by the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th time that I've done it in Space Marine 2. I am what would you would call a Warhammer 40K newbie, where I love the universe, I love the lore, but I have not read a single book, and I love being educated and informed about it. But yeah, even for me, the game was just a amazing beginning to end. It was cinema, pure cinema.
I want to talk about the introduction to Warhammer via that game in a second, because we had a 4-hour patron Discord, and it was all about how we felt this is an intro, how we felt this resulted in an intro for people who don't know Warhammer. Johnny, though, I wanted to get your thoughts. You gave them last Friday. Has anything changed? You still absolutely love it?
No, I think it's fantastic. And there is surprising depth to the combat too. When you play the campaign, it doesn't ask that much of you, it's kind of like a
it's a power fantasy. Yeah.
Power fantasy. It's super cool, and you start to learn how the game works. But once you get into operations and you go to higher level difficulties and stuff, you're really tested, and you really have to figure out okay, why am I dying insta?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And you start to dissect it oh, okay, I need to position behind something so I'm not getting shot, for example. Or, well, no, my class can't be the first to go in because X. You start to parse it all, and the way it combines with the combat, with the combos, and the song and dance of getting an execution and buying yourself a few more seconds, right, until the next one, and already thinking, what is the next one? Well, I have to go to that guy there next to get another execution. You start to kind of think ahead. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's surprisingly deep and satisfying once you get into it.
What about you, kid?
Yeah, so I started the game I want to say a couple of days ago. I started a run myself, and then I did started to drop in a co-op with Attic. I have a brief history with Warhammer games, and I'll say this: I'm coming in not a fan of the franchise, so I was more so skeptical of Space Marine. I was like, all right, this is probably going to be one of those games. It looks cool. It's going to show off well. I'm going to get it, and it's going to be the same what I get. So pretty much I'll tell you games that kind of I tried, and I was like, I can't do these games. That was I want to say this game Hired Gun came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Netro.
The turn-based one, right?
No, it was like a first-person rapid shooter. The thing is, I wanted
Bolt Gun.
First person.
Bolt Gun is what you're talking about.
No, this one's Hired Gun. It's called Hired Gun. It came out in 2021. Okay. And you had this dog as thank you. Necromunda Hired Gun. It had
okay. Yeah.
Yep.
I did. Yep.
I remember that one. Yep.
That was to me, in my opinion, horrible. And early in the Xbox Series X, PS5 gen, so you kind of just wanted anything that was new. Dark Tide, I didn't like that very much. Vermintide was probably the most I've kind of okay, I can get into this a little bit, but I wasn't in love with it. So when I saw Space Marine, I was like, okay, this is and this is probably disrespectful saying it now, but when I first saw it revealed, I was like, this is Gears of War, the Warhammer universe. Okay, I can probably get with that if everything's gonna play out this way. And as the reveals and we get closer to launch, the game's looking better. And then I didn't buy it. I didn't do the $100 early buy. I had to watch ACG's review. I had to watch a couple others reviews. It's okay, this seems kind of legit, because I was like, it doesn't look like that typical Warhammer. It's just this funk that it has, this thing about it that they're very consistent.
That low quality funk.
Yeah. And so I was like, I'm not seeing that here, so I'll buy it. So I waited till it came out. The street release date, which was I think September 9th.
It was Monday.
Monday. Yeah. So I bought it that night, and then I was like, let me tease myself. Let me do get through some of this to see if I'm gonna like it, because I already committed that I would stream with Attic, and everything from all the Warhammer games I've gotten to play, and I did play Bolt Gun. I bought that some weeks ago.
The Boomer.
Yeah, it's like that retro first person like aesthetic, right? So I was like, okay, story wise, this is, even though it's not like over the top, it's very respectable. It's like one of those movies, like I could watch this movie a couple times, right? It's not going to win any awards, but it's good enough. It's entertaining. So I was like, okay, so this is clearly one of the better stories I played in this universe. I never read the book or anything like that, but as far as a video game, all right, they got me there. Graphics, okay, they did a good job there. And then as far as the gameplay, that funk I was telling was like, all right, when is it going to come? And I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. No, and when we were doing the I forget where this is where the difficulty is starting to like get to me or get to us. We're trying to protect, and I'm still, I want to say this has to be relatively early. We're trying to protect satellites from being like destroyed by these swarm.
The cables. The cables. Yep. Every single player of Warhammer Space Marine 2 knows what you're talking about right now.
Yep.
So that one is where I said, I have to. I was like, dude,
that's funny.
I can't continue because if I continue tonight, I'm going to hate this game. I was like, because after this podcast, I'm gonna go live and the goal is we're getting it on the one try. But that's where kind of like was kicking our ass when we were going, because we felt like we were like, okay, we got it. Okay, I know, keep up the executions, to keep the armor, and that became like a lovely mechanic, and it was addicting. So I'm hitting them just to the point, and I'm stealing executions as I see fit. But no, they did everything. I feel like they did everything well as far as when I first played, I was like, am I supposed to play this like a shooter? But it's like, no, they encouraged me to use the hand-to-hand combat, which is actually solid. And I think it would be, considering how big these guys are. They're big, bulky, and I'm thinking the game moves at a good pace, and I assume it's going to be a lot slower, and it's not. So there's this combination that this game has that makes it very approachable and it's fun, and it has like this little addictive factor. And like earlier, I was going to try. I was like, I don't want to be in a situation where I'm playing and then I get on the podcast and I was like, I don't want to get yelled at for playing a game during the podcast. So I was like, I'm not going to turn it on.
Oh yeah, I'll yell at you. Lord Attic knows that, man. When we caught him playing Destiny during the podcast, I was like, dude, what are you doing, man? This is my Friday.
Who would ever play games on a podcast?
Lord Attic would, and I love that guy. He's one of my best friends. One of the people I've met in this industry. So many people are awesome. Lord Attic's one of the greatest guys I've ever met. Super conscientious, but he admits that long focused discussions are not his thing. The podcast back and forth is. So when we dive into a game, I started to see flashes on his glasses. Go.
Thank you. That's a great thing. That's a great thing to keep in mind for my own shows that I'm on.
These guys know. I will call that out.
What else do you know? So glasses.
Well, and when I can hear the A button being clicked repetitively.
Oh, that's good.
So I'm like, Addict, are you fucking playing games while we're doing a podcast? And he's like, what? And he does it all the time. It's just, so to him, it was completely normal. But yeah, that kind of stuff. It was a great time. I want to read a super chat real quick. Love the games, $5. Thank you for the super chats, because we are, we split the channel off recently. So if you haven't subscribed, I would also love that. He says, I sound and feel like there are 3 cancers fighting for domination in my throat. Glad to make it live. What are your thoughts on the Ubisoft stock crash? So love the games. That's actually on the list at the very end. So we will talk about that a little bit, talk about Ubisoft, probably talk about Shadows and stuff. But I wanted to read that. I do appreciate the memberships, super chats, that kind of stuff. It does help the channel. My thoughts on Space Marine 2.
Real quick, ACG, before we continue, for those that are watching on mine, what are those channels? And which is the spinoff that they can go follow right now?
ACG is the main channel, or Angry Centaur Gaming, the old name for it, because it was a D&D name. It's like your name, where you think it sounds cool, and then you become a streamer, and you're like, oh, that was a bad idea. And then it is just at the Best Gaming Podcast on YouTube. And you can find this channel there. And by the way, that is not ego. That is because this podcast has never successfully got through a podcast without a technical issue. And one day, one of the podcast hosts was just like, dude, this is the Best Gaming Podcast. Like, we've cut out 3 times. We've lost the internet 3 times. And I'm like, dude, sounds like a perfect name for the channel. And it actually worked out.
There's some irony there.
There's some definite irony.
We have to say we've popped up like in some random countries. Like
Dude, we were
popped
number
off
one in
India or
Romania
something.
and number one in like, because I shouted those guys out. There was like
Yeah.
6 people listening to us, and I was like, "Hey, you 6 people, you
Yeah,
made us
just
number
like-
one." But
Okay.
Space Marine
Nice.
2 for me. So the thing about Space Marine 2 that I find, so I do agree with you guys. I think the up close combat, it's good at times. I think that the way collision detection works and the way the enemies come, it definitely feels like World War Z. You can see that, especially when they climb on the walls. It's the same animation, you know, stuff like that. I'm fine with that. I knew it was a Spawn engine, so I knew what they were going for. But it gets past that. However, as I said in my review, their weakness, and it's a legitimate weakness, is flying enemies or enemies that are on chains. There is a distinct lack of mid-level engagement that game has. And yes, you can throw a grenade. You can use they purposely in the campaign will drop you a bolt rifle with a grenade launcher. But I got to tell you, when I saw that, I knew it was because they knew there was a weakness. And if you play games long enough, you'll start to go, why is this weapon in this one level? Like, why is it here and nowhere else? And then you start to go, oh, I know why it's here. It's because playtesters played this and we're like, this doesn't work great right now. Like, we need something to reach out and ping these guys off of a crane or off of a this or off of that. And we see that. Overall, it's a great game. It's a fantastic one. It's got some tech issues. I got kicked couple times. We definitely have issues with server connections. It is online in that way. I do like that I can play it offline if I want, but it says it won't save your progress. We checked that last night. It apparently doesn't. I think I would love to see them fix that. I would love to see them give you an offline mode, because got to be honest, I don't see why there isn't one.
Exactly. There's no reason
Right.
not to have one.
Yeah.
That's just a resource thing at that point.
It probably is, and they did state it's in the upcoming patch. I do also want to shout out, because they've been brought up a couple times already, the Vermintide guys. They did with me what the devs did with Cohh for Owlcat, especially because they were the first people I ever met in the industry. The devs, I've worked with them on Vermintide. They've been on the podcast. Victor's been on the podcast like 5 or 6 times now, and Darktide. The Warhammer universe is awesome. However, I do understand where kids coming from, because every Warhammer universe, if it's not Space Marines, has its own power curve and feel. And you can end up playing a game going, how are these guys this powerful in Rogue Trader, where they can basically govern on planets they're not even from? You know, they've got all this power. You're reading about them. You're playing the game. You're like, wow, these guys are super powerful. Then you play in a different game. Then you play a Space Marine. The thing about Warhammer is it's so massive, it sort of allows for it. But it also, GW has been really bad and good at different times with their IPs. Sometimes they weren't letting anybody make the games. Then they were making everybody, or they were letting everybody make the games. And you're like,
Also, there was some leadership and kind of goal transitioning in that period as well. What I understand, they kind of went from a more shotgun approach to a more
focused approach,
standard rifle approach. Yeah.
And guys, I mean, it's an utter success for them. I think the Saber guy said at the time he was checking into if it's the best selling game they've ever done, which I sort of liked a CEO saying he had to check instead of just putting his foot in their mouth and then some YouTuber or Redditor saying, I verified this, the CEO lied. Instead, he's like, actually don't know. And I know that sounds weird, but I get a little tired of,
it is
refreshing.
We need
to talk
isn't
on
it?
YouTube. So-and-so lied. And you're like, dude, they said something on Twitter. You know, it's like, so that was great. It's just overall an awesome game that I think delivers the power feel of Space Marines quite well. And it's got the best enemy that probably Warhammer has. And I mean, I love the orcs and I love the other characters. As somebody who got into it day one in 87, like I literally bought the first board game that came off the shelves. I've been a follower of them for now more than 3 decades, and it's been fantastic to see them sort of roll out and finally get some like logistical success that isn't relic RTS games. I like RTS games, but they're not really hot right now. First-person shooters.
Yep.
No.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the biggest is having its own share of drama and issues right now. So
which one's the biggest now?
Stormgate.
Oh,
I think you could argue the biggest up and coming is Stormgate, just from a funding perspective. But I mean, it's the RTS field is thin, I think is the word
it's
right now.
rough,
So.
man.
But no, also just to add to what you were saying though, also the fact that they released Space Marine 2 with like 3 distinct different game modes. Granted, I haven't done PvP and I've heard shaky things, but Operations is awesome. I mean, that's, like they came out with this cool campaign. I mean, let's be real. You know, I beat it on the hardest difficulty, dying a bunch at like 10 hours. So you can probably beat it between 6 and 10, which, you know, is arguable for the cost, that much time. You may want a little bit longer, but the Operations mode is basically a mini Darktide. Like they've managed to actually not only class it properly, but add some fun progression and some cool distinction. And the customization system is just awesome. So like, that's wild. And one of the things that gets me the most excited about this project is not only are the developers pretty solid already, and they already have a pretty solid foundation. They've already pledged to a whole bunch of extra stuff coming. They've already said that they're going to keep working on PvP until they hopefully feel it's good. And the operation trail is going to keep going too. So it's a very positive release. It's nice, and I hear this all the time, and I'm going to go ahead and repeat it. It's nice to get 1.0s at 1.0. Yeah. It's nice. It feels good. Yeah. And I feel like these are the times as gamers we need to step up and just be like, this is awesome. Thank you. Like, keep doing this. Like, it's like positive reinforcement. It's like, let's just round of applause for about 10 minutes. And
you know, we also, everybody has the tendency to like notice the bad much more than the positive. And you see this as a streamer, like in your chat, you might see one negative message and that might get to you more than the 20 positive ones. Do you know what I mean?
Sea of positive, absolutely.
Sea of positives. And so the same thing can happen with games where we're so used to pointing out and noticing the problems with games coming out. But it's good to also make it a norm to like highlight when something does come out in a great state and has, you know, a great plan.
Do you know what my hope for?
Highlight, celebrate, and lift up.
Here's my hope in the future, that this becomes so mundane and so bland and boring as a topic, we never have to bring it up again. Because the idea that I'm sitting here celebrating a 1.0 being good is frustrating to me beyond even any kind. And I'm just going to get mad, so I'm going to move on. Because that's what happened on the last podcast. It just that pisses me off, that we're getting so many early accesses, so many games that are like, oh, we'll fix it later. And as somebody who's reviewing like 9 games right now, I can tell you some of those I'm like, God damn. Like, we need to lock this shit down a little bit more.
It's also interesting, though, because like we're in this kind of this new age of game dev where, you know, a lot of companies are, as part of their actual working routines, are planning for long-term support of really good products that just aren't there yet. Like, for instance, like, it drives me crazy, but in the same vein, I absolutely love this game that just came out called Core Keeper. It just came out into 1.0. The game is phenomenal. I love it. It's awesome. It's not a 1.0. It's still missing some key features. They're still saying they're going to add some stuff. They shoehorned an entire class in 3 days before release. Like, they are the first to say like, oh, we're not done. It still needs to be worked on. But they did the 1.0 because they were tying up with some console release stuff and some other things. So they had to do it. But in a vein, it's like in this world that we're in now, I feel like in the past, and I'm with you on this, 1.0 was the end all be all. 1.0, you're bug free, your gold disc is what we used to call it, right? That was your 1.0 was the code that went on the gold disc. And then you knew that was the okay one because that was the one they were going to make 10,000 copies of. Exactly. So in our mind, that's what 1.0 is. It's that static, never changing, this is it. But I hate to say it, and it makes it so much more messy, but like the game dev world these days, it's no longer that way. It's no longer that way. And like Core Keeper being a great example, where it's just like now it's almost like an artist with their art, where, you know, an artist is the one that says when they're done with the art, not the people looking at it. They're the ones that decide when it's finished. So like they may call it a 1.0, they may say it's a 1.5. Look at Terraria, they're on like 1.7. Like, and they're still developing their vision. Is it actually their 1.0? They called it 1.0 0.7 patches ago, but they're still making it. It's still being developed wholly into what they want it to be. So it's like, I've kind of started a little bit more letting go of that when it comes to indies and when it comes to passion projects and projects where I really trust the devs. The part where it drives me crazy is AAA. Like the part that drives me crazy is where it's like, this is clearly not a passion project. This is clearly like you're doing this to make money. It's a conveyor belt game is what I like to call them. It's an assembly line game. And with those types of 1.0s, I feel like that's the standard with as many resources that went into it need to be held higher. but the more you go down the chain, like it becomes more and more meaningless. Weirdly
Well,
enough.
let me offer a counterpoint. My $60 doesn't know the fucking difference.
That's true.
And if a author,
which is why the cost of the product is so important.
It's important. That's why I rate on cost, because number to me means nothing.
Yeah, which is fair.
I've never look at a friend and said that game's an 8. He'd be like, "What the hell does an 8 mean? Like, what is like? I need to know like what it is. You need some context." But here's the thing that I agree with you, but I would say with Warhammer, if you look at how they handled Space Marine, that to me could be considered not 1.0. Just if you look, they're adding a horde mode, they're adding multiple levels. So maybe
the PvP mode's a mess. It's an actual mess. Yeah.
I didn't have too much of a mess, but I didn't play it as much as PvE. But it's not as full featured, I guess. So you look at it, right? And you're like, okay, I guess what I'm saying is I want the 1.0s to look more like Space Marines does, which is here you have these modes, you have these things, and it's locked down for what we're offering and that you can get to. Because I don't like the option of getting to something and half of it is not there. Also, if a novelist ever sent me a book and 3 chapters were missing, you can bet your ass I would be on the next plane to their house. And I would be like, dude, this is an early access book. If a song, if I bought a CD or if I bought something off of SoundCloud and they were like, oh, by the way, there's no drums. I'd be like, what are you talking about? There's no drums. It's not even a song. That kind of stuff pisses me off. And so as a reviewer, I have to handle it differently than you. But as a reviewer, I can tell you, I don't have an issue with an early access or a 0.5 or what have you, if there is a very distinct idea and a very good roadmap you can see moment one. When they start missing it, there's issues. But one of the reasons why I don't review early access is because of this. It's because also one of the big problems I have with early access is if the developer's taking feedback, and this happened to me in a AAA game, and they decide, guess what? We don't like where it's going. We're removing why you liked it. And this happened to me with State of Decay 1. State of Decay 1 simulated the world when you turn the system off, and it was my favorite damn thing in the universe. And a bunch of wussies were bitching about it because the characters were dying, and I log in, and they've removed the option. And I'm like, what are you doing? You removed it? You didn't just let me turn it on, or it's gone? Like, and that, so to speak to your AAA, to me, AAA should have the option. You know, they should be able, if anybody should be able to turn the option on, it would be a company. You wouldn't say AAA, I guess. They're probably AA or B or something.
Yeah.
But I also, as a reviewer, I have to say, I love the idea of indies because as somebody who's worked and done mods for games, I see that struggle. But I also, at the end of the day, I'm reviewing the product and the product for a certain amount of money. And I personally do not believe game dev is a charity. It isn't. I love those guys, but I'm not supporting an 100%. Indie. I'm not supporting a AA, and I'm certainly not supporting a AAA. What I am doing is telling you if the game is good, I will buy it, and then I will tell people if it is worth getting, you know, or if I felt ripped off. One thing I do like about game dev is there are all these options. That is the other positive when you look at game development right now. Man, when I started even reviewing, you didn't have half of the options that we had now. Unreal. I know people hate it, and they have valid reasons to hate the company, you know, all this stuff. But if you look at the idea that this engine is available, right? You look at these different graphic engines, these things are available for people to make stuff that when I was younger, I was doing assembly line code. Like 10, go to 20. Go sub 1000, like straight up native assembly. And now people are able to make things with blueprints and Unreal and all of these game engines. So a lot of improvements have also been made, which are great because we're starting to see people make these smaller games that are pretty phenomenal and would never have been made 10, 15 years ago. You know, they wouldn't even been created. With Space Marine, though, finishing up that conversation has gone well, but I told these guys I had a question for them. Something weird happened. So I looked at the numbers for Space Marine 2. And remember, these are Steam because we don't get console numbers because those guys obfuscate. They're like a vampire casting a spell. They don't want you to see their numbers. But if you look at Steam, 140, 150, I can't remember. It's like around that for the premium version. So that's your $100 version, right? Or whatever gets you the early access. When it went live, guys, I'm going to just be brutally honest. When it dropped in price, I was actually surprised it didn't go as high as it did. I was very surprised because I was under the assumption that at the lower cost with the good reviews and the big number of premium, that it would have tripled or quadrupled. It barely doubled. So my question to you guys is this. Is that because third-person Warhammer games have a niche audience that's about 350 to 500,000 on PC, which is fair. That could be fair. Remember, we're not including Epic. But if you look at that, is it just that? Is it the fact that that people are waiting? Is it the idea that yeah, like, why do you guys think? Are you guys surprised? Because normally what I see with early NCAA is not a good example, but NCAA exploded. That had a ton of early access and then a massive number of people who jumped in afterwards. And we've seen that a couple times. This one didn't go up as much as I expected. Did it? I mean, does that even come into your guys' thoughts when you sort of look at sales numbers and go, see, this is the problem with Steam Concurrent, by the way. It gives you a number and it fakes that you have data, which you really don't. So this is not a great argument on my half because there's other systems that it can be played on. But I'm just wondering, is that number, if you look at that concurrent top, is that sort of lower than you guys would expect, especially with the great reviews and such a big property? Or is that normal?
It went up an additional 100,000, right? Or
it's about Johnny, can you check Steam Concurrent, the top?
Yeah,
he'll check right now.
Because when during the early access, it was like, was it like 132?
Yeah, it was like yeah, and you know how we don't know exactly what that means.
The peak was 225,000.
So it didn't go up. It didn't go up more than 100,000 on full release.
Okay.
Does that?
So
go ahead.
Here's my thinking. First of all, I think the Warhammer games of the past definitely influence people's current thoughts on Warhammer games.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I will say that just to start with. But here's the thing.
True.
They had a prolonged early access period. I think it was like 4 days or 5 days.
Yeah.
And that is a 6 to 10 hour main story game. And not everyone is going to play Operations. So there were people that were done with that game on 2 days before it was available for purchase. So the numbers were all over the place. The reason I'm saying that is because I think that the number of people who were willing to pay that extra money to play early is probably much higher than people are thinking.
That makes sense.
I mean, this is one of the best interpretations of the Warhammer universe we've seen.
Yeah.
And it became very clear very early that was the case. So I think a lot of Warhammer fans were like, okay, this is worth it for me. Like,
makes sense.
This is amazing. Like some of the stuff we saw. I mean, the streams were all looking incredible. They did a huge promotion on Twitch, which brought tons of eyes to it. I mean, there was at one point, like I think almost 150,000 people across Twitch watching this game.
Right.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Especially considering it wasn't a giantly hyped game. It was pretty hyped, but it was not, there's much hyper games. So I'm not that surprised. Okay. I'm not that surprised.
That's fair.
To be honest. I think that's about where it is. And I do think a lot of folks are playing it on console as well. So that's a big chunk.
Absolutely, for sure. For sure, console.
I'm not super surprised.
In a way, this game sort of fits console too. It's got the console bro feel to it. It's got, there's something about it.
Until I switched over to using gun more, and funny enough, it was that freaking level you guys talked about, that exact place where I realized, dude, I could, well, funny enough, just a little side note, that level was that part was the first time I almost lowered the difficulty, but it was also the time that I realized that I've been approaching the action game wrong.
Yeah. Yep.
If you play solo on the hardest difficulty, Space Marine 2 is not an action game. It is a puzzle game.
Yeah, it
because
definitely is.
The only way I beat that encounter starts, there's 3 sides. 2 show up on the left. You have to kill the 2 hypers. You pull back. A range group is going to fall. You blow up the thing there. You have to kill the guy in the top right, the big guy, or it's not going to progress. Go to the other side. There's going to be 2 crack grenades there. You kill the 2 that come down. You go back and get the shot grenades, throw them in the pit. The big guy comes down, kill him first, and 2 flying. So I had to spend 2 hours learning that. Just dying over and over and over and being like, okay, when did the level progress? Okay, no, died again. Okay, let's try again. Okay, maybe this time. So it was an experience, to say the least.
It's like that movie, Cohh. Do you guys know the movie The Edge of Tomorrow?
Yes, I mentioned that during.
It's like he knows it is very much like that because he's died 200 times.
Yeah, it's like, learning the dance is what you have to learn the steps of the dance.
Well, that's what I was
like. when to throw and when to twirl and when to shoot that way and that way.
Yeah, it's got a musical. I mean, I do maybe too often compare things to music, but I certainly felt that there was a rhythm to things that felt almost like an old drum set game or something, where I was like, okay, I need to go there. There's a little bit of music over here, then it's over here, and then even when it got really messy, I'd be like, okay, this is just sort of the discordant fucking guitar solo right now, you know. And you go through that, and then you move on to the next part. Real quick, Living 393 super chat, $5. It says shout out ACG and Smooth. Anyone played Age of Mythology Rebirth yet? Has anybody on the panel played that?
I played on Xbox. I went to, it was on Game Pass. Yeah, it's on Game Pass. I usually don't do RTSs. Reason what made me give it a try is because I wanted to see how well they
controller.
They wanted to see how well they invite the console gamer. And what I will say is they have an amazing tutorial, and it's very gamepad friendly. So it's actually I can actually play the game and have some sense of like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I don't feel obligated to put like a mouse and keyboard into the Xbox to play. But no, it's very controller friendly, and they have a good like easement to get like on for new players, good for new adapters for those who aren't familiar with those type of games.
We should shout out Microsoft too, because they have done a great job with some of their RTSs with figuring out pad stuff. I mean, sincerely, there's been a couple I've played and I've been like, wow, you guys like deserve some kudos for that.
Yeah, we've come a long way, haven't we? We have Final Fantasy and Baldur's Gate that were pretty good.
Final Fantasy
14.
Oh, that little MMO no one plays? Yeah.
Yeah.
That little trashy MMO no one plays.
Small MMO.
Soulskeeper 24 super chat. Gents, awesome guest today. Question: if you could cameo in any game, what would you opt for it? Which game? Gary the Prophet and Cyberpunk is excluded.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I've never wanted to be in a game, but if like to be in a game, is there a character in a game? But what was it like? How about this? While we're thinking of our answers, Cohh.
Yeah.
This is okay. Obviously, inside baseball. You know, you don't have to answer. You know, just make sure you realize I'm not asking you for anything that you don't want to talk about. But when you were doing, and you've been in a couple games, when you do that, do you find yourself? Does it add to the title when you get it? When the title is done, other than I'm in it, do you feel like do you get enough data about what's going on to where, you know, when it finally gets released, you're like, oh yeah, I feel like I truly feel a part of something? Or is it more like almost like a bit actor where you just go in for a bit and you're like, hey, if that does well, it does well? Like
for me, I approach cameos as basically gifts from the team to me.
Okay.
It is the cameos that I do are almost always done in a way where it's like someone on the team enjoys the show and they want to bring me in some degree. No cameo I've ever done has ever felt like they're trying to use me for publicity or PR, which when I first started doing them, I was very concerned about. Like I didn't want to get put in that position. Yeah. So, and none of them have felt that way. And I think my management, I use a management team called Loaded, and they've been very good about that because I made it very clear. I get asked to cameo in a good amount of projects, and they don't all line up. So it's very much a synergistic relationship. So like I need to really like the devs. Generally, at least one of them likes me for some reason or another.
Right.
and it just kind of goes from there.
Okay.
Yeah. Funny enough, I recently was asked by a major company. They were kind of like, hey, we'd like you to be in our game. And I said, awesome, I'm in. And they said, cool. Who would you like to play? And I was like,
damn.
Oh. And it's interesting because that led to this conversation where, you know, at first they were like pitching me like big characters and stuff. And I was kind of like, oh, well, like, you know, one thing that I'm very aware about is that if I come in as me with my voice, if you're able to instantly recognize what I'm doing,
I know,
for a huge amount of people, including the ones that, to put it bluntly, like I really care about, the people in my community, they're going to hear my voice if I'm just doing a voice and instantly be like, oh, it's Cohh. That's on a main character in a game that's immersive. That's a problem.
Yeah.
So one of the things, like I told them, I was like, I'd love to be in your game. I want to be in your game. Give me the drunkest, weirdest, craziest character you have.
Right. Yeah.
Like I want like did you read all the data slates in Space Marine 2?
Yes.
I'm 2 of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
No way.
but
Really?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh, wow.
you know the campaign mission where that big hybrid guy, Tyrannid, stands on the bridge and then you knock the thing
Yeah.
down and it
Yeah,
falls
yeah,
on him.
yeah, yeah.
And that guy in the next room is like, "Man, I just built that great bridge and it's gonna be there forever and no one's ever gonna destroy
and
it."
no
Yeah, that
one's
was
ever
me.
gonna destroy it. That was you.
So
Yeah.
now streamers, when they get to that, they're like, "Sorry, Cohh," and they blow the
Yeah.
bridge up because it's my bridge.
That's
and then
amazing.
in the main campaign, there's you go in this back room and there's this tech priest that like you see all these dead corpses around him. There's tech priest talking about how they took his ship and he's so pissed about it. And that's me talking about how angry I am that they took my ship and corrupted it and now I have to kill them. And like, so it was really, really fun. But stuff like that is like, you know, they approached me, and that, for the record, they were not the people that asked me to play a main character. But when they approached me for that kind of stuff, it's kind of like, there's never, in fact, I wasn't even allowed to talk about that stuff. You know, like there was no PR. And then when it drops and when it's there, it's just like this cool kind of, oh, it's me. Like when I played that on stream, nobody had any idea until I was like, wow, that was pretty cool. That was me. And the chat was just like, what?
What?
You're like, what? Like, what's going on?
Hold up.
And that's how I prefer it. That's what I like. I love being in games where I can have some fun with the roles. I mean, for the Space Marine 2 stuff, I had to spend hours with a vocal coach. I've never put on a British accent. And they gave me 12 lines in 2 different English accents.
Oh,
I was like, are y'all trying to hard mode this? Anyway, so like, but it was, and in that kind of situation, that's where I live. That's what I like. I love being characters where it's like, you don't know it's me immediately. And then if someone were to tell you, they're like, oh, I can kind of hear it. You know, like that's where I like to be. So, and it's great.
Lansby says, Carrick, we already found the majority of clones of you in military games. Yeah, I know. I do look like generic military character number 7. I get it. I would say that when it comes to stuff like that, I've been asked a couple times, and I've always turned it down, mostly because of time and travel. I like the idea of it. But because I have so many, we have composers and voice actors on this channel all the time, and I love those guys, and they do crazy stuff, but I also at times have to ding them. For example, there's certain big actors that show up in a game, maybe a Spider-Man game, where they're the same person that you hear on a podcast, and you're like, ooh, that's raw. Now I see that I don't even see the character. I see that person standing there. That's hard.
Happens,
that's hard.
Man.
It's
yeah. Dude, it's even happening to me with like some of the major voices in our industry, where it's just like they play like there's some I'm gonna give Troy Baker. Troy Baker can do an entire lead role, and I don't know it's him. That's awesome.
Unless it's Spider-Man.
Unless it's Spider-Man. but there's other large actors where it's like there's certain parts of their voice where the first word, you're just like,
yep.
Immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, especially.
And I'm thrilled for them because I love that they're getting work and I love that they're applying their trade. And like, that's awesome. But at the same time, that's what I'm not going for by not playing bigger. I don't want to give people that. And it kind of stinks for them. And because it's like, the more accomplished they are, the more they will be providing that to people. And it's not a good feeling.
Yeah, it would suck being in control of something that is one of your main things in life, which is the sound of your voice. Which is why, like, when I got the Hitman, when I got to David Bateson, right? Yeah, Bateson, the Hitman voice actor, I had to ask him straight up. I'm like, how does a voice director ask you to change up Hitman? Like, you're always going to be Hitman. You're always going to sound like Agent 47.
Think of Elias Tefexis. The man's voice is a fingerprint.
It's a fingerprint. Dude, every game, it's got a, he's just like the guy who did Person of Interest. Who's the Whisper Man I always joke about, Johnny. Oh, God, I can't remember his name. But Cavall. And that guy, they both have a thing where even if they were screaming, they'd be whispering. It's no matter what it is. They're like, hey, and you're all, dude, I know exactly who you are. Yeah, it's rough. But no, I think it's really cool that they do it. And I like the idea that you just said, which is that sort of keep out of the propaganda of it all. More. Get out of the PR of it all, because I think that's where things become really broken, is when it becomes the PR of it and it starts to overlap, and then you get some questionable situations.
I do want to point out, someone in my chat said, yeah, there's a lot of people, their voice reviews like Amelia Tyler. To be clear, Amelia Tyler, if she voice acted every character in every game, it would be okay.
Which give me some roles she's
Amelia
done.
Tyler, narrator of Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, gotcha. Okay,
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
She was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Oh,
She was
she's
good,
also
man.
Malady in DOS2. She is actually the more you look
Oh.
into her, she is now all over the place. And once you start hearing her voice, you will not like anytime you hear it, you're like, oh, it's Amelia.
Well, it's
So,
for me,
yeah,
it's
she's awesome.
it's
She's
the
fantastic.
for me it's the like slightly older female actress from Mirage and The Expanse, the one we always talk about, Johnny.
yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
yes, with that
she-
super unique voice,
Dude,
Yes.
Seven.
Oh, love
She
her.
always sounds like she gargled rum, rocks, and smokes. She didn't even smoke them; she swallowed them. And
It's
when
And
she
fantastic.
talks,
most importantly,
Yeah.
that she loved it.
she loved it.
That was like she did it
And
for fun.
my
Yes.
my hackles are like whoa, whoa when she talks. I love her voice beyond all belief.
Yeah.
And when she's in something, it's a TV show, movie, game. I'll be like doing something else, and I'll hear her voice, and I'll be like, what? And I'll just go down and sit down, and I'll be like, I have to watch. I love.
I had the
her
same
voice.
thing with Lance Riddick. You know,
Oh yes.
Yeah,
rest
man.
in peace.
Rest in peace, man.
Yeah, because like the
Incredible
moment I
voice.
heard him in
Fringe.
no, in Horizon in the game.
That's where I saw him first for the
Horizon.
I
Yeah.
love Fringe.
Fringe
Yeah.
is one of my favorite
Yeah.
shows of all time.
Dude, you're in good company. We
Yeah,
all
especially
love
for Fringe, for sci-fi
We
stuff.
talk about Fringe all the
So
time.
you saw her, you caught him in Horizon first, is what
in
you're saying.
Horizon, and I didn't know he was in it. Like
Mm.
as in, I didn't see his name in the PR or whatever, but I immediately knew, right? Like he spoke
Yeah.
that phrase, and it's like that's him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that
it's
can be
so
a
good.
strength,
Yeah, because
but I
you
agree.
hear him first in the game before you see him, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's
Silas,
what
right?
it was.
Isn't
Yeah,
it
yeah,
Silas?
Yeah, I was like,
Silas.
okay, I was like, that's that. And the
Yeah,
thing is,
so-
I didn't know his like his name, but like obviously I know his name now, but like back then I was playing, I was like, this
Yeah,
dude,
yeah.
I'm naming games and movies he's in, and I'm like, I was like, watch when they show him, and then he shows up, I was like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah, rest in
That's-
peace,
Dude,
but
Oh man, it's I mean, yeah, we could go on forever about people passed away. It's always surprising to me too that whenever you get somebody like that, you'll have people go, "Oh, he passed away. That's too bad. I only knew him from this." And I'm like, "Dude, you've probably heard him in 1,000 things." And then they'll pop back and be like, "Oh my god, dude, he was my favorite character in this," or
Yeah.
"Oh, he was in this," or he was over. And he started later in his life too, especially getting popular later in his life. So it was. But I remember hearing him, and especially in Horizon, where you have some that are good and some that are a little, it goes up and down in quality or how the writing is, because a lot of it's the writing, a lot of it's the audio directing. I mean, when we had Anthony and Gruber on, who does Lego, he played as Harrison Ford's son in a movie because he's easily the closest to Harrison Ford I've ever seen. I know Troy Baker got the job for Indy, and I think he sounds great. But if you hear Anthony and Gruber, you'll be like, "Wait, what?" Like,
Yeah, because he
that's
does the
Harrison
face
Ford.
too.
Yeah.
It's like a full.
If you look up his YouTube, Anthony, we've had him on 3 or 4 times,
Yeah.
and you just, it's so amazing. See, I don't have that talent, man. I just to hear people who are able to do that kind of stuff in a game, it's always, I don't know. I just love it, man. And I'm such a big, like, if the vocals are good in a game, such a big deal.
Oh,
Music, such a big deal. Which, by the way, we have a patron question. What is the best title screen or single track in a game that you guys resonate with or that you guys love? Is there a very particular, as a music-based channel, I'm always asked this, so I have my go-tos.
I can break the ice with this one. Very easy. The one track, and there are many, we could say many games, but the one track that I always loved is in Nier Automata, the one that plays in the
This
theme
cannot
park.
continue. Oh, yeah.
No, that's a great one. But in
Mhm.
the theme park, the way they layer that thing, because it starts very thin with a simple,
Yep.
just the bare bones of the melody, and the way they flesh it out
Just the
and build
tip.
it. So every iteration, yeah, just the tip, and every iteration it builds into this amazing. Yeah, I love the melody; it's so unique. The whole OST is goated, but
Yeah.
that one stuck out.
That's an awesome one. You guys have a main menu music that you love, or a single track and a song, boss battle, anything?
I got 2, and I use them for intro music on my channel. The first is the main theme for Yakuza 0,
Oh,
which is
gotcha.
like this like rock awesome energy thing. It always gets my energy up. Like I don't think any song in any other game has. And also, of course, every time floods me with every Yakuza bit of nostalgia I have in my brain, which is fantastic because one of my favorite franchises. And then Rebel Path from Cyberpunk. which is one of their iconic songs that they play at like some of the big parts of the game. To this day, that's one of those songs to me that like Barracuda by Noise Storm, where it's just, it never gets old. There's just I have a handful of songs that I could just listen to on repeat. And, you know, most songs, I'd say after 20, 40, maybe 60 for a really good one, kind of done with it for a while. Those 3 songs, I listen to them every day and will continue to do so for the foreseeable future.
What about you, kid?
I'm not a big audio person, but I can tell you, I can give you a couple like instrumentals or tracks or like just moments in video games that I like a lot. Want to say the final boss, Bloodborne, and when you're in a at the end of the game, they kind of did very well with that sort of. It's like this like frightening harmonizing, and it just kind of like synchronized with like the magnitude of the moves that were taking place.
Yeah,
and which kind of helped me sweat a little bit more. Recent game, Hellblade 2, when they're that level where you're the giant is like you have to avoid her
the fire, and it's in time with the beat of the
oh
my
god,
I'm like, okay. That was good.
I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And there's this one game, and I was looking for it on my Xbox because I feel like they put it out maybe a couple years, but it was a game that I initially played on Super Nintendo, man. And I believe there's 2 characters in the game. I don't think it's called Smash TV, but it was like dun 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 dun, and I think you're killing like zombies.
That does sound like Smash TV.
This sounds like some core memory shit. I like this. This sounds like the kind of stuff you're just walking down the street and you catch yourself humming something.
Yeah,
and you
it's
don't know
an
what it is.
earworm, and you're like, what in the hell? And you'll spend 6 weeks and a bunch of brain cells trying to figure out what it was.
Oh, man. Zombies ate my neighbors?
Yes.
Zombies ate my neighbors?
Zombies ate my neighbors, dude. My goodness.
You should look up Schoolboy's dubstep rendition of that. I think you might love it.
For me, it will always be Dragon's Dogma. The Wind is Pushing Me, the guitar solo, because I just don't think in my life I've ever been that surprised by a title.
Is that the Arisen?
That's that's the original that they removed. It's the prior. Yeah. It's one where it starts out orchestral and suddenly out of nowhere it turns into a hard rock thrashy guitar with him wailing like the wind is pushing. And I was like, what? And I remember in here, and it was on, and I hear my friend who's a musician go out of the blue, nothing else happening. I just hear him go, what the and I'm like, what is that? And I walk out because I thought he had switched channels. And I go out and I'm like, is that the menu music for this friggin' song? He's like, yeah. I'm like, what are we? This doesn't even make sense because it was so discordant from the game. And it will always. And I mean, I love Baldur's Gate original and Icewind Dale and Mass Effect, of course. But for me, surprise is paramount. And I would say the next one is what Kid said. I was absolutely blown away. And I was so mad because I was reviewing the game, so you can't talk to anybody. And I played that fire level. And it was everything, because music is either additive, it's usually additive or transformative. It just depends. That one, the layering of how that worked, and I remember it took me a couple tries before I realized the beat of the music was going with the fire attack. And I remember just sitting there going like, are you shitting me? That, and of course, Nier Automata. This cannot continue, because I love when diegetic and that kind of stuff sort of bleeds out, and you know, you're like, are they singing it or is this just an overlay? And then you realize it is the robots and you're like, what is going on? Nier was such a surprise.
That's really unique what you said, like the music giving you information about what's happening.
Well,
in the
you know
game.
why it's unique? Because as Justin Bell from Sony and from Obsidian told me, well, they accidentally screw up and they'll spoil the game's boss for you. Yeah, he's like, if you put a stinger too early, you go into a spot and you hear da-na-na, and you're all, well, dude, the bad guy's not here yet, you know. And he talked very openly about, like, you can mess that up if you don't have Wise set up, which is their software. If you don't have it set up just right, and the player does something, but it's not timed with like the area the boss comes out, and you hear or the music goes away, and you're like, wait. Why'd everything get really quiet? And then you realize there's a boss coming. And there's a surprise. So yeah, those are great times, man. Gaming Addict, $5 super chat. Love seeing Smooth on here, guys. Hit that like button. Thank you very much. Moving on from there, We finished up pretty much Warhammer. I think we all like it. It's a good game. It's got some issues. They're patching it up. It's got a great roadmap. And that is truly what makes me the most excited, because they got a Horde mode on there, which I think Horde mode is going to excite me like nobody's business.
I'm very excited for it. Do you guys have a favorite
class?
No. Well, okay. Can we do two-part question?
Okay, we got to be quick because he's got 2.5 hours.
We got to be quick. Favorite class, favorite color. Was there like a Astartes chapter color you liked?
I'll give mine quickly. Your burnished copper that you've got, Johnny, and the ACG colors, because they did the yellow and black really well, and it was able to not look like a Mattel toy figure when I did it. They do a really good job with the color fading, and of course some of the Chaos Marines. But the burnished copper, I don't remember the name of it. It's not that.
Yeah, it looks classy.
It's not the sun.
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah.
Either one of you guys have any that's been your fave?
I did Vanguard for a long time. The zipping around was pretty fun. Also, was feeling Assault when I played that as well. I didn't really feel the weapons that were like ranged only. Didn't really feel heavy too much, or tactician or sniper. Although I haven't played sniper yet, but really like the melee in that game. Which is funny when you mentioned earlier about how much the flying guys bug you. I was the same way in the main campaign. I'm like, I'm a walking tank. I've got to have a better way to deal with something 3 feet above my head.
Would you please come down to me?
Yeah, I know,
You're like, do I know any slang to piss them off?
Dude, it drives me crazy in operations that you can't, as an assault, blast up to them or pull them down with your grappling hook. It's just like, you've got a hook on a thing. Anyway. But yeah, so Vanguard and Assault, had a great time with those. And then for colors, I kind of bounce between red base white or white base red. So White Scars and Blood Angels.
Blood Angels.
Blood Ravens. Blood Ravens? Blood Angels?
No, it's Blood Angels.
Yep. Blood Angels. Okay.
Or,
yeah. See, that shows you the extent of my Warhammer knowledge. I love the blood guys, but I couldn't tell you.
Well, I know it too, but there's 1,000 chapters, so it's not too hard to miss one.
That's true. But no, I think the White Scars is what I usually rocked. I really like the white looking armor. Very, because that way also clean. Do such a good job getting your armor bloody.
It's
like making yourself a canvas when you make yourself with the white armor, and it just becomes, you're bred by the end of it.
It reminds me of Dragon Age. Was it 2? That they just sprayed blood everywhere on everybody, and you'd be playing Dragon Age 2 in a cutscene.
Just talking to people.
You're just talking to people. You're like, I love you. I love you. Your noses are rubbing like a CW romance, TV show.
You're talking to like a child about their lost cat, like, and you just look like a murder victim, and you're just
body
like,
part, eyeballs hanging from you.
Like,
You know the character's like, damn. What about you, kid? You got any?
No, not good. I haven't really gotten to the point where I'm
PvE yet.
To really enjoy that stuff. But as far as like with the game like that, from what I've been playing, because obviously during the campaign you get the access to a varied amount of weapons. I will always, every time I play shooters and stuff, I'm always on like more so of an assault range with weaponry that can be like mid-range to long range. I'm not the greatest sniper in any sort of game, so I don't I don't play that way, but as much having like firepower that's mid-range, and I'm not good at close combat, so that's why I kind of learned the hard way where you get these the game, you kind of get these like I know you get the standard like bolt pistol, and then there's the this sort of other gun that you get, and that they each have their own alternative like firing modes and stuff. And it's, again, learning the hard way of things I just can't shoot at. And I was like, okay, so there's got to be some sort of sniper or a ranged weapon on here. And you brought it up earlier that there are placements of just random weapons.
Yes,
I was like, what? And I had that moment. I was like, hey, this random gun is here, but I'm going to use it because it seems like this is the only logical way for me to do this portion of the game. But no, I do want to get into PvE. How I typically tackle games that offer like varied modes like this. I get through the campaign first, and then I tackle like PvP. It's just more so it's this flawed way of thinking, because back in the day when we played, when online gaming was becoming a thing, I felt like campaign was my practice, so that
No,
when
I
I
feel
got
that way.
online,
Yeah.
that's
you're right.
where I can actually duke it
It's
out.
absolutely the way to do it. Most of the people who jump into our Discord, because we had like 30 people in there for Dragon's Dogma, and we had like another 25 all streaming. And I was warning everybody, I'm like, you know, if you're having issues in PvE, it's probably best to just, you know, give a little time to the campaign. So as he takes a phone call right now, he's like, I got to go get my kids. He said he'll be back in a little bit. Yeah, no worries, man. Moving on from there to a little lesser. Oh, I do want to say one thing. You know, he was talking about the specific weapon. That's the other thing I notice in games. This is just playing them too much, but I'm sure everybody else knows what I'm talking about. When you go to that door, the door's shut, and you look to the left and right, and there's boxes of equipment everywhere. And you know it's a boss.
The prep
Gonna go down.
That's the prep room theory.
Yeah,
Where it's like any gamers get to a point where anytime they see a large amount of equipment, they immediately get nervous.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And
Or a
especially if the door's
it's
shut.
a lot of people don't even realize it, especially you guys out there here in the podcast listening right now. Next time that happens, take a second and take a personal account of your heart rate.
Yeah, it'll go up.
You will be surprised how you will actually, like Pavlov's dogs. You will be like, oh.
Yep. Yep. And I weirdly enough, I love noticing it. And I do not have an issue. Like when I review a game, I would never be like, oh, there was a box there. But it is funny that some developers lately have tried to slightly break it up. Maybe have the box on the inside. Like there's a boss in Warhammer where you come up to the boss and you have a box on the outside and a door. And then you go through it and there's a box on the inside. And I was telling Johnny, I was like, you know what would have been cooler? No box on the outside. Have the box on the inside and then make the person have that be a part of the boss interaction. It already is, because you usually have to reload against that boss anyway. But
not only do I agree with you, but there were times in Space Marine where they did that, where it was like they'd have an ammo box in the arena or without it, where like I'd be playing an operation or something and someone would run out of ammo.
Yep.
And there wouldn't be a box in there. And it's like, oh, the box is outside.
And the box
it's just
changes
like, why?
position
Like, why
sometimes
is it outside? Like,
It's, weirdly enough, this sounds so dumb. We were all playing and I was like, I'm out of ammo. I'm out of ammo. I'm out of ammo. And I remember as we played, I'm like, what would a Space Marine do? He wouldn't bitch. He'd just go in close. And I wasn't the close range, but I'm like, all right, that's what we'll do. You know, because I had been playing mid at the time. And I think that it definitely can be stressful, especially on the higher difficulties where they turn, you know, you have less drops. Johnny and I were playing the hardest, and suddenly compared to mid, there's nothing. You know, you're running around going, there's a single box of ammo, and everybody's doing like rock, paper, scissors to see who gets the ammo. So great. Yeah. I loved it though. I was like, oh, this is, to me, there's something, their teamwork. I don't like games where two randoms can join, they don't have to talk, and nothing happens and you still win. I know that sounds really weird. That's just me. I like it when, even if you join with randoms, there's this, you can sort of see as people bounce back and forth towards an item to say, language. Like, can I get that? Like, can you get that? And then you get it. And then, yes. And what's so funny is I've had really good experiences with randoms in this game where, other than one guy, and you know who you are, whoever you are out there, you bastard, but most of them have been great. Yeah. And you would see quite quickly, they would like hold back the other people and just stand there like this to mean, oh, that's Carrick's health. Like everybody else is at one. He doesn't have
I
one.
still remember this one guy, Wet Chipotle 69. Like, he just took all the
gotta be that
impacts.
Oh, did he?
Honestly, I mean, I think a lot of people are on autopilot, because if they just come from the campaign, what do? You're picking up everything you see.
And you're stealing people's kills, right, Johnny?
That's well, I mean, that's, to be honest, that's how I was the first time I did Operation. I was playing with my mods, and I wasn't even thinking about it. And for a while, I didn't even realize I was taking their stuff. Yeah. Until finally Barry was like, "Why are you taking all my ammo? You're Vanguard. You don't even use guns." And I was like, "What do you mean I'm taking your?" Oh.
Yeah. I had a special that blows other enemies up when you do that, because I am the tactician, and we were playing, everything was fine, but I was also out of ammo. And then at one point I was like, okay, guys, you gotta give me a kill at once. You know, you gotta like stop, because you play that campaign and you're just hammering that. You're just like fatality, fatality, fatality. That's awesome. Moving on from there, Smooth, did you already get your kids?
Yes, they're.
Is your school 1 foot away?
Oh no! So the bus stop is like,
dude, I was like, do you live in the school? Because if so, you're doing a video game podcast. You're probably supposed to be doing
multitasking, man.
Yeah. Moving on from there, let's talk about the PlayStation. So PlayStation Pro, weirdest announcement ever, which we can cover it all, but $700, no stand. Yes, I get that, but $700 for the hardware itself. Do we have any preliminary I won't even do it that way. Whoever wants to go first can just go first. What were your thoughts of the PlayStation Pro, its announcements, your thought on hardware? Anybody can go first.
It's an enthusiast device for enthusiasts. Like the only people that would need something like that are doing like 4K, and and it's the kind of thing where, I mean, I remember in my 1440 and all my stuff, I frequently would comment how the PS5 is like, man, this looks amazing. This is crispy 60. Like, oh, this is great. So like, of all the people that did a tech upgrade, like of all the consoles, like you basically the one that's already doing the best, like to give it more, it's kind of like it was already doing great.
Yeah.
And then the price point too on top of that, it's just, it feels a little, we've had a lot of discussions on my channel recently about how Sony has become this machine.
Yeah.
Like look at Concord. Like Concord was a game made for 5 years ago, but it was cranked out of the machinery that Sony has been building for decades.
Yeah.
Of this conveyor belt of game creation. I feel in a lot of ways this PlayStation upgrade is that same conveyor belt where they're just like, we know this has worked in the past, we know we're supposed to do it, it doesn't make sense, but we're doing it again. And it's like, and everyone is kind of like starting to get in on it a little bit more, where it's kind of like, dude, yeah, we all kind of want to switch too, man, but we don't really need an upgraded PlayStation. Like, so it's just, it seems like a product that's just not made for, it feels like Concord, where it's like, it's a product that doesn't have that big of an audience. Like, yeah, people are going to buy it. Absolutely. But it just seems out of touch. It seems a lot out of touch.
Yeah. What about you, Johnny or Kid? Go ahead, Kid, if you've got yours.
Yeah, no, it's I'm one of those type of people who would buy something like this and it did not make any sense for me. I was fooled for the Pro upgrades and the 1X and whatnot. I did those last generation and would have been willing to do that again this generation, depending on what the promise was. But when the PS5 and the Series X and stuff came out, they seemed like, I was like, I can actually deal with this. This is 60 on most games, 4K, fake 4K, whatever, but the games look good. They perform good. This is actually fine. I'm content. Now with the PS5 Pro, what happens is that, like, I like what they're doing or what they're promising, meaning that, hey, we don't want to make you choose between quality and performance. We're just going to give you, quality at 60 FPS. And I think that's really good. It's promising. But when you consider the things that started making me nervous, the closest to its reveal, and what eventually kind of got me like, okay, well, maybe this is the first time where I don't chase a FOMO console, is the price. You know what I mean? It's $700 is a lot of money. And I think as gamers, I mean, we have limits, obviously. I feel like my limit personally for like a gaming console was like, okay, $550, $600 is where I'm still in day one territory. I might have to trade in a couple things, but I could still make it work. $700 now, it's just like, I've never paid $700 for a console. Not like I might have spent $700 for a console and a bunch of games and accessories, and it just at the end of the day, I was coming home with like a bundle of stuff along with that console for that price. And I'm like, okay, I'm digital on Xbox, but I'm not sold on digital on PlayStation, only because I really don't really trust them that with that to like buy in on digital. So it's like, I will probably, I have a disc drive for my PlayStation. I probably buy the disc drive. So that's another whatever. And the
stand, you want the stand, right?
The stand, which I struggle standing the current PlayStation.
I mean, at what point where you're just like, maybe I should just be looking at a budget PC?
And that's where the issue is. Is like, at this point, I was like, if I'm really considering this, at this point, I was like, I might as well just invest that $700 in my PC and make my PC better than what it is today.
And you'd probably be able to get better performance in some cases than the PS5 if you can upgrade the right things.
Considering every game they showed in that 9-minute presentation was a PS4 or PS5 game that's already on PC.
Also, real quick, wanted to add, somebody said, I'm really surprised that Cohh feels this way given his feelings on 60 FPS. I've always put performance over graphics. Always. I would rather play a poor looking game at 60 than an amazing looking game at 30. But the thing about the PS5 is I play at 1440. The amount of times performance mode on a PS5 has ever put me in the realm of this is uncomfortable to look at. 99% of the time, I don't feel that way on the PS5. So,
Okay.
and that's where I live.
Is that 1% Final Fantasy?
It was Final Fantasy. I can't remember. There was Final Fantasy and one other game where it was like great everywhere, but the second you'd get into a city, it wasn't Cyberpunk for the record, but it was, I can't remember what it was, but there was like this certain game where you'd pan the camera around in a city and it would like drop to near single.
Dragon's Dogma 2.
Maybe it was Dragon's
The city
Dogma.
was at 18 FPS. Yeah.
But yeah, outside of those specific cases, which you could argue at those cases are probably more the game than the console. Things not being utilized properly. Like, I don't need $700 to make my already smooth running stuff look a little better.
Right.
That for me is not worth it. That's where the value comes in. So if the game's already running well, like we're good. The 60 frames is far more important to me. The good performance. It's not always 60 on PS5, but it's good. It's always like 45, 60, which for me is fine. So it's that kind of thing.
What about you, Johnny?
I'm gonna throw them a bone first because I thought the concept or like the selling principle of we're gonna give you quality at 60 FPS was a good way to frame it, and it was based on real data because like most people they found play in performance mode. So I thought that was a good way to approach it. However, the way they showcased the diff between like the new console and the prior one, like the footage is really hard to tell the difference when you look at it, especially through YouTube, right? Like you really have to dig in to see differences. And it's the image on the left, like, the current PS5 is already really damn good, like Cohh is saying. So it's a hard sell for you to say, well, I'm going to pay all this money to now go to this slightly incremental improvement.
So my thoughts is, so I've had an issue with, so I've lived through, confident Sony, bully Sony, like super overconfident, get a second job Sony.
The many
for your PS3, the many shades of Sony, the many shades of Microsoft and Nintendo, and Sega, and all the TurboGrafx 16 for Christ's sakes. The thing is I've been noticing this, and I've lost some patrons and subscribers for it when I started complaining about the PSVR 2, where I was like, listen, the support here from the developers I talked to is not there at all, and this thing's going to be released into basically gaslit. It's just going to be released and you're not going to see a lot of support, which is exactly what we saw. The Portal was the same way. Sony is in, and I agree with Cohh, and I think that you can definitely see it, that they're in a churn state where it's like this worked. I also do firmly believe one thing. Sony believed that they were going to be able to kill Xbox by having a handheld, a VR, and a Pro. And whatever happened, they didn't relook at their plans. I don't know why, but it seems like they thought we're going to hit every spot that we can hit. By the way, they also have streaming, which isn't really talked about much, but the PlayStation service has, and it's got a good sub overall. So they have hit in a number of spots, and they want to hit everywhere. But I have had problems as I've looked at their hardware releases, and Sony wants to be Apple so bad that you can smell it from a million miles away.
Absolutely.
And the problem when you look at these kind of things, $700 to me wouldn't be bad if they had third-party games and they were showing those. Because first-party Sony games already have great image quality. That's just the way it is. Sony is very good at the image quality of the first-party games. So to show a difference doesn't really work out. I want you to grab me Dragon's Dogma 2. Show me the city FPS in Dragon's Dogma 2, and then we'll talk about what that upgrade is. I will also state that while it is easy to say, upgrade your PC, we all know that that's easy to say. But there is a massive demographic of people that do not want to jump into the PC ecosystem for a number of reasons. And those reasons, as somebody who, this was my job prior to YouTube, I can tell you, when it comes to TVs, when it comes to consoles and PCs, there is a number of people that jump in little increments, not $700, including the cards. $700 is a lot of money, even if it's a PC part. And what Kid said, I thought was interesting. He said, I don't think I've spent $700 on a console. I got to tell you, I haven't spent $700 on a thing very often. and I buy airsoft, and I buy martial arts equipment, I buy weightlifting. If I'm spending $700, I'm talking to like many people to figure out if I can get it cheaper or why this thing that isn't driving me around in a turbo is costing me $700. And I have some pretty expensive outside of gaming hobbies. So that's a lot of money. It's just a lot of money.
Yeah.
And their presentation was very rushed. Listen, I think Mark is one of the best technical like gurus since maybe John Carmack. It's just that having him look like Dr. Evil in a house somewhere during an 8-minute presentation trying to sell me your PlayStation 5 didn't work. It was a very poor presentation and very unlike Sony. That is the other thing I want to point out. Whatever occurred for this 8-minute thing was very unlike Sony. It didn't even feel like a Sony event. It felt like an event from a Bitcoin scammer. It was just like, I'm going to have a guy talking. Dude, seriously, go look at, like, this is, I mean, I wasn't the first one to mention that. Like, a lot of people are like, that sounds like somebody selling a Bitcoin. Now, am I saying they are? No, I'm saying that the presentation, the style of a guy just sitting there showing you barely anything, but saying he promises stuff. Also, you don't have to choose between friggin' performance and quality is a lie. Developers choose the FPS, not the console and not the hardware. You know how I know? Because I have a 4090 and I'm playing a game for review right now and it's getting 25 frames per second.
Oh,
so we're also on top of that, we're running into this like super uncomfortable zone where technologies like DLSS are getting so good that now we have to start the discussion on how much of a crutch are developers going to use things like DLSS instead of just properly optimizing their games. So people that like don't have it or don't want to use it can't use it. Same thing you're talking about now.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, cool. Now that the PS5 Pro is here, are we going to see people be like, yeah, it may not run great on PS5, but it runs great on PS5 Pro. So it's like,
so when I just want to finish and just say, when you are looking at all these things, the way it was presented and their history, I do think that it's pretty easy to look at it and say, okay, they have these particular plans that for whatever reason, they don't stop. I think it also makes sense that it's a boutique item, so they're not losing a bunch on it. They're making it. I'm sure they're not losing money. As the DF guys stated, they were like, nah, this is not a typical subsidized thing. This thing is probably making them some money, especially when you look at the CD drive or the DVD drive, Blu-ray, whatever. It is for the high stakes people. But I just want to point out again, this performance efficiency is not real. I don't care what Mark says, and I would say this to Mark if I talked to him. I would say if I met him at an event, I think he's amazing, but I think any developer would openly admit they choose the FPS. And we've had developers on this podcast say, if I want the game to run at 1 FPS at 720p, I can do that. I can overburden everything if I want to. It is up to the developer to choose whatever is going on, and they're in state. It is not the hardware. That's why you don't see hardware saying you have to get a minimum of 60 FPS. It will never happen. Developers will just be like, well, we want to do Detroit Become Human. We want it to look like this. It's at 30. Telltale games, well, not Telltale, but those style of games. Sometimes a cinematic game. Supermassive. By the way, I like a lot of their stuff. And sometimes they're just like, hey, this thing's going to hit 30 because we want the extra polygons. And they choose it, man. It frustrates me. And people who think this is going to run GTA 6 at 60 FPS, man, I'm sorry, man. I would just wait. I would wait. Maybe they'll have a mode that it runs it at 60 FPS, but you're asking a lot from a console that is built on pretty ancient tech now. At this point, it's not new.
So... go ahead.
No, go ahead. I don't want you to lose your...
No. I was going to say, there were some people that were asking in my chat, like, what is DLSS? What are they talking about? DLSS basically takes a lower resolution image and blows it up to a higher resolution. So the effect is that it runs faster at the expense of image quality. And depending on how far you go down in DLSS, the quality of that image can get lower and lower. So the premise is that as developers start to use DLSS to attain the numbers they used to get before DLSS existed, we are now getting similar performance at a less quality image because DLSS by design provides a less quality image for better performance. So that's where we were going with
that. One thing to also mention is FSR uses a buffer, and it's just looking at the past frame. The one nice thing about DLSS, and certainly Sony's, they both made it clear, they do use hardware that is trained on games, trained
and
on
it's great
stuff.
tech.
And it's
record,
great
the tech.
tech
Is awesome. It's more. I think what we're talking about is more of the industry trend and how the tech is being utilized. It's not the tech itself.
Yeah,
the tech itself is revolutionary.
The tech itself is amazing. The optimization. They just whenever this is added, though, it happens. I mean, it feels like nobody should be surprised whenever a new tech comes along that can make things look almost as good but run way better. That some people are just going to be like
relied upon.
Becomes relied upon.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just the way it is. It's too bad.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say is a couple of things. I feel like the pricing is Sony testing their Appleism, right? Like, we all know that in gaming, I feel like PlayStation is the Apple, is the iPhone, and I feel like this is a test to see how far they can go with selling a high-end PlayStation or the newest PlayStation. And we kind of also got a snapshot of what our future console generation is going to be priced at in the future. If Sony's the market leader and they're setting the trends. The other thing that I didn't think we would need a pro or a mid-gen refresh this generation, because I don't feel like these consoles have been peaked or fully extradited, or I know I'm saying
exploited.
That wrong. Yeah, thank you. Fully exploited. I do not believe no one has properly optimized any of these consoles when you consider 90% of the games that are still coming out are still releasing on PS4 and Xbox One. And the fact that, these techniques have come out with FSR and frame generation, and they're relying on people who have VR TVs and stuff. There's like, okay, we don't have to optimize the frame rate. We can use these upscalers to sort of clean up the resolution, and they're just letting it go. And the thing is like, so a lot of these games, like our consoles, I don't even think the PS5 base Series X are been like fully tapped. And then we look at the games that are releasing, they're using all these techniques, and they're not properly, they're using it to really deliver 60 FPS and deliver 4K, but we're getting these shoddy images because the image breaks up when they use all that stuff like badly. Once you start getting into action and whatnot, you just see it in the image and whatnot. And then a lot of games aren't holding the frames, and like, well, if you have VR, then you're good. But we're gone are the days are we getting a delivered, 1440p 60 FPS or 1080p 60 FPS that they optimize for. If they optimize for that spec, 1080p is actually fine. If they optimize, I'm optimizing my game around 1080p 60 FPS, and then decided, hey, let's use some of these upscalers to make it look cleaner, we probably have a different conversation. And I do fear that when the PS5 Pro comes, it's going to be crazy. We're going to see some great examples, but it's going to be more of the same. The brute force, like our PCs. It's just going to be by brute force.
I want to make sure that I do at least explain that a couple of the devs I've talked to who have worked on consoles as well as PC, they are optimizing. Not all devs are releasing shoddy performance games. Many are optimizing, and the DLSS is great. It's an added thing, and they can do that. But there are people who are optimizing for a 1080p, and then they're using an upscaler to make it look better or what have you. Also, I do want to point out, as somebody who, like, this is my job to critique and look at things, zoomed in at 800. I will say that DLSS in particular, the new one, and FSR 3 in particular, have a far greater picture quality than FSR 1, 2. Mm-hmm. And so I do want to point out, because I think people, that could steer it the wrong way, and suddenly people could be like, oh my God, it must look like a mess. And it's like, actually, not. It just depends on the game, and it depends on what they're doing. Foliage, if you're using foliage, how that's going to...
Especially the encoders and stuff will
encoders.
Wreck it. Yeah.
So, but when we look at it, I do agree that those can be crutches. I don't think they've been crutches for everybody. And in fact, we've got a lot of games on consoles that can't use FSR.
It's a dev thing, for
it's
sure.
It's a dev per dev thing. I just want to point that out, because like some I'm talking to, they might hear like that kind of comment, and they're sitting there, and I just got done talking to them, where they're, I see their performance and they're like at 95% or whatever. And it's like, that is optimized. We are right. Also, I want to point something out. one thing I don't like is you see 60 FPS by console makers, by PC makers. This happens all the time. Recommended specs, which, by the way, recommended should just mean minimal for the most part. Like, it almost always ends up turning out that way for me. But one of the things I hate is also when you hear, like, this runs at 60. And I'm like, wait. Capped at 60 or locked at 60? Those are dramatically different things. Capped at 60 means that thing can drop down to 12. You know, locked at 60, we're talking a whole different ballgame. And as somebody who gets a little bit motion sick when I do have a huge amount of variability, when it's, 25, 45, 25, 60, 25, that can cause me to be like, oh, man, this does not feel good. In fact, I would rather have a locked 30 than something that's going 30, 45, 30, 45, because the moments of 45 input latency versus 30 input latency, you will start to go, this feels weird. It feels a little shoddy. It feels a little messy. That's sort of getting off the track, though, because we don't know what we're going to get from it. I will just say the reason why we're off track is because of how poor it was shown and
we have to extrapolate
and
in a way.
Yeah. And so I want to point out that, yes, we are a little off, but at the same time, now when you look at it, it's like the reason why is because everybody is so lost, not knowing what they were trying to do. And here's what I heard. Oh, this is what I hear from every console fanboy, every PC, NVIDIA, AMD fanboy, Intel, is there's going to be something coming. Listen, since 87, I've been hearing this every year. Oh, something's coming down the pipe. It's going to surprise you. There's going to be an event. There's going to be something. If there was supposedly a state of play event coming up, then here's my personal opinion. They should have done both at the same time. If they're going to be, here's a state of play with the PS5 Pro stuff, why would you ever try to force it to last week, even if it's really close? I would have loved to have seen them say, here's some partners we have, and here's what we have going. And that would have been a much better display. Also, YouTube, 4K, get it at a high pixel rate, because even when you look at that video, it was a bad bit rate. It was a low FP. You're watching the YouTube going, why did you guys try to show something that was supposed to be high res at a low res and try to tell us that we would see something different? There's a lot of games that they could show. I know Shadows, right? Assassin's Creed Shadows, I believe. Didn't they announce the same day that they'll be supporting it? That's a game with a lot of foliage. I would like to see how that looks, especially in, Dying Light. I don't mean the game. I mean Dying Light meaning sunset, which is really hard to get some of your looks together whenever you have any kind of upscaling. I've noticed that lighting and stuff changes things. You start to notice problems a little bit easier. I would love to see them handle some of those kind of things. Just let us see it. We need to see it, man, because right now, they're like, it's November 1st, right? November 1st is when they're selling it?
November 7th.
November 7th. I mean, I guess they're hoping for people to just build up excitement, but I haven't seen that. I've been tentative. I've seen some people say, but that's about it. I haven't seen really anybody be like, oh man, I need it. And that's not because it's bad. We don't know. Like, There was not a lot there, man. It reminds me of the old days when AMD or Intel would be like, hey, we have this new chipset architecture and new instruction set. And you'd be like, well, what does it do? It's 12 FPS more. And you'd be like, and what game? It'd be like DX games. That doesn't mean anything. Like, we need a title. You need to show it to us. You need to say, here's the difference. And I honestly do wonder if they're a little nervous about cannibalizing. I mean, see, here's the thing. If they show great improvements, you're still asking for another $200. If you don't show great improvements, you're then killing it. So it's like they are in a weird spot, man. And like, we're in a weird situation when it comes to consoles in particular. That cost is going up. And some games we get now where you get a game on a console and you think, oh, we're used to consoles delivering, or we're hoping they're going to deliver a solid frame rate, and it certainly has not happened. Got a lot of games that release with pretty terrible frame rates on consoles too. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting to see. But I can tell you, man, $700 shocked. Well, it didn't shock me. It's just that Sony isn't reading the room when it comes to the economy either. It's like Sony used to tell you to get a second job to get the PS3. Now they're saying, hey, if you're unemployed, get one job, then get another job and buy a PS5 Pro. And you're like, dude, seriously, you guys are like, somebody needs, look outside, man. Half of us are scraping by. So, is there anything that, no new controllers, right? There's nothing really new on that front that I saw, but I didn't really track any controller stuff for it. So no new. Is it anything about battery life on the controller? The PS5's battery life on the controller? Anything? Okay. Huh.
Nah.
That's weird.
No difference for nothing changes with the SSD. That's no, that gimmick is still there.
With the SSD? What do you mean?
Yeah, you know how like when the PS5 was originally revealed, the SSD was like the biggest deal. That the SSD and the DualSense. But that's so no changes as far as like they didn't mention any sort of like enhancements or anything like that with its read and write speeds. But it being 2 terabytes, which is a big deal because I think the original PS5 I think was under a gig.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. They had a huge provision on it. I think it was like 780 when you were done with the
just
it was
the
a
OS,
terabyte and then it went
like,
to 780. Yeah.
Right.
Also, I can't believe it, man. But I'm sitting here going, man, Switch 2, can you come and save us, please? Can you come and make me interested in something again? Dude, you know Nintendo is just over there like, Sony did what? Like those guys, sorry, but Nintendo's high, man. I don't know what's going on with Nintendo. I'm like, dude, it's so far past time. Could we please just see it so I can either decide yay or nay? Like, where are we with that? Yeah. I would love to see Nintendo show up and be like, hey, here's a couple titles on a handheld that's even just proficient, you know?
Here's Xenoblade Chronicles 3 on the Switch, and here it is on Switch 2.
And it won't cut your face from the polygons. That game is amazing, but I have never... It was actually physically at times painful to look at. It was like, damn, that's like 3p. Like that's like a postage stamp.
I had such a bad time forcing myself to finish that I have quasi sworn off playing games again on the Switch because I don't want to enjoy them enough to want to have to use a Switch.
Oh, damn. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, how old's the Switch now? 8 years?
That is
7
a
years?
painful thought process.
Yeah,
but it makes sense.
You figure out the tape out for it in the fabs is probably another 6 months. That's old tech, man. We need it. We need it stepped up. Yeah. I'm excited to see what they do. I'm not even a big Nintendo lover. Their games 2023 they platinum like a son of a like they dunked on everybody. There were so many good games, but I'm not even really a Switch lover. I just want to see somebody and see where they're going and because they have competition too. I have 3 of the handhelds. They have real competition now in handheld space. So there's that as well. But yeah, it's a weird one. Anything else? Let's see with PlayStation and its cost, price, announcement. Cohh was right. It'll sell some. Everything from any of these companies. The 32X sold.
It's like Apple. Like they could literally market a piece of feces and it would sell it. Like
it
will sell.
And I think they've been pretty clear. The Pro was like 8 to 10% of total sales over time. I think for a boutique item, that makes sense. And that's pretty much what I would assume here. If not, maybe a little less, just because at least what we're going on right now. $700, man.
Curious to see how the market responds to it. No, we're in such a different scenario we are versus what we were at in 2016, 2017. PS4 Pro came out. Almost replacing the original PS4 price because the PS4 price I think at that point was you could probably get it for like maybe $200 at that point, $300. So whereas the PS5 like the price is still its launch price for $500, and things just only going up there. I think the accessories have gone up, the DualSense has gone up. So I'm really curious to see how the market truly responds to something like this, and then how much do you think they produce for the year? Like, do they mass produce this, or is this going to be something like a niche find? Like, how often, like, how many do you think they intend to ship along with the PS5 standard?
I mean, did you guys see the DVD player and how much it's selling for on eBay already? You knew that was going to happen. Like, you know that some jackass from, some YouTuber has got a pile of them, and he's doing a video right now about how he bought 150 at the local Fred Meyer. Like, there's always that jackass who decides to scalp everything.
I'm going to make bank, all right?
Yeah, hey, it's all about me. Cohh, if you do that video, I'm coming at you. So moving on from the bad stuff, let's talk about some more good stuff. Well, that's not all bad. It's not all bad. It's just, it's sort of nebulous right now, I guess, would be the easiest way to describe it. I do want to talk a little bit about another game that came out that sort of got lost, even though it's amazing, which is Astrobot. That game, anybody played that but me?
Not yet.
I have had hundreds, if not thousands, of people ask me to play that game. I mean, it has become this weird micro phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's kind of, a lot of people are saying like it's one of the best graveyards they've ever played.
Yeah.
That
is exactly what it is.
They love it, but it depresses them.
Yeah, that's a depressing take.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's this weird like giant nostalgic trip from what I heard. It's all the gameplay we used to love when it was just innocent and pure, and it's all the IPs we used to love that aren't there anymore. It's like a love letter to simpler gaming times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't played it yet, but like I don't know. I don't know if I'm
coming to a let's play.
I want to.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
See, so admittedly, I do get a lot of shit because I'm not super emotional. It's just for whatever reason, especially when it comes to games. I didn't feel that way. But I do acknowledge it. It was there in my brain. That I for sure saw a bunch of characters. I'm like, boy, we haven't seen that character in like 50 years. So that definitely pops up. But I will say, as an experience in a game that consistently offers a unique experience every moment by the moment until the very end of the game, that's the one. And it is also stunningly, brutally, crushingly easy. And I know those are weird words to use with easy, but there are moments where you're playing it and you're like, wow, this is almost too easy to feel like it's not that it doesn't feel like a game, but there are times where it
like
sort of doesn't. It's an experience, yeah. But it uses the DualShock Great to unfortunate results with the DualShock's battery, which is this thing eats DualShock batteries. It is straight up Pac-Manning the hell out of all of my controllers. I mean, I will get it plugged in and start playing, and like an hour and a half later, I'll look at the thing. I'll be like, whoa, what the hell? Because, I do have it turned up. I do like when they're on, I want them to be on. But it's beautiful, guys. It's a fantastic experience. I saw people saying Game of the Year. Certainly in the discussion. I haven't played all the games, and there's some great games coming out. So, personally, I don't know much if it'll be on my list, but probably because I'm a big, what was it? Psychonauts 2 I gave one year because I just thought Psychonauts 2 was amazing. So, it's phenomenal as a experience. It's a little less so as a game. Like, there's not a lot required from the player. And that's the only experience I noticed is I need a tiny bit of challenge. And there were times where I was like, wow, there is not any challenge.
That's honestly what's been holding me back. I've watched probably 3 to 5 streamers play it, even some that I could tell were really enjoying it. Mm-hmm. But for me, there's no real long-term goal setting, and the gameplay looks very simple and basic. Yeah. And honestly, it's super nostalgic, but I don't have a lot of nostalgic to PlayStation older characters.
Either do I.
I grew up on a Mac and stuff, so that's one of the reasons where it's kind of like I wouldn't want to play this game that is so meaningful to so many people and just be kind of like, this is kind of boring. Oh, look, there's that guy.
I feel that. I feel that. Yeah, I mean, and we've seen this before. Rare Replay had this where a lot of people I know didn't know anything about Rare, so they're like, why would I? It's not. It didn't capture them. It is a nostalgic game, but I will say. Pretty does great stuff with audio, by the way, too, and their music. They do some I don't even want to spoil it. They do some stuff with music in that game that is straight up phenomenal, just really well done. Moving on from there, I have a bunch of questions for Cohh and for Smooth, who just left, as always. Smooth is like that's that smooth criminal, dun, 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 and he just disappears. So let's get to some of these. Discord asks real quick, what do you guys think about the massive drops in Ubisoft stocks?
I think that there's somebody trying to sink the company from the inside. So, I mean, that's a thing that I think is being... So for those that don't know, there's a bunch of turmoil going on at Ubisoft, and it's not all overt. I mean, a lot of it is just big money people doing big money things on boards. But stock is big money things for big money people most of the time. So a lot of it is reactionary to that. Also, to put it bluntly, it's kind of interesting because this guy who is challenging the brothers that own it through this board, you can tell the points he's bringing up are probably just from a VC background or from hey, we just want to sink you. But his points are actually great. So it's like you're just making products that are the same and they're just more of the same stuff and all. So you can tell that guy probably doesn't, or that whole group probably doesn't play the games. But I mean, that's a lot of the problems that gamers are talking about with Ubisoft stuff. So it's this I feel, although not a direct interpretation, we're seeing a lot of this in AAA gaming, where these giant monolithic machines are starting to break down. and they all don't break down the same way. The way they break down is expressed in different ways, be it concords or stock prices, or like all these plates that have been spinning for decades in some cases. You know, they're becoming not agile enough to keep them all spinning. So I think this is yet another symptom of us seeing these machines just not able to keep up due to agility and many other factors.
I think it's agility. I also think it's world economy, and that sometimes a company will get past a rough spot that in a current day they might not get past. It's almost like, you know, you drive slow if your car has bad shocks and its potholes, and if you do it right, you might get through it, and if you don't, you might have an issue. I see Ubisoft. I see like Immortals Phoenix Rising. I see some of their indie stuff. I see Prince of Persia 2D, and I'm like, I'm very, by the way. very, Immortals is one of my favorite games from them, like legit ever. And I see these titles from them, and then I see the big tent poles, and I see the ideas that they have, and I'm like, for a AAA company, I'm like, whatever, they're doing their thing, and it's not, some will be for me. I think I'm less than 40% of saying to buy them day one. A lot of bugs, too, in the bigger games, so, you know, it's a little rough. But it is just what it is. It is funny, though, because one of the guys in our Discord, he's a big AI guy. He's always doing stuff with AI. And he's like, dude, that guy who's suing them, it feels like he searched using ChatGPT for the major complaints and then literally made a lawsuit. He did. That's what I'm saying. You could tell that the guy, like, they don't even really know what they're saying, words. Yeah.
But it's wild how crazy it lines up with all the real... Like,
yeah, it was great.
It's a weird thing to read. This is all public, by the way. You guys can go read this. So
it's an interesting situation. Certainly a sucky one, because I don't want any company to fail. I don't want anybody. I would love for all games to be good.
Ubisoft employs, God, at this point, tens of thousands of game devs working their ass off.
Yes,
across the multiple different companies.
Ridiculous numbers.
So not good.
Knucklehead says, not my personal take, just saw online, thought it could hold it could hold up as an argument. Do you think Sony excluded the disk drive from the PS5 Pro and increased the SSD size in order to secure extra sales on the discs, on disk drives? Oh, on the drives themselves. Whereas they can't control if someone buys a third-party SSD. But they're the only ones selling the disk drives.
I think they're realizing that they will make a lot more money separating the two and selling it as an enthusiast product than including it on the huge double-digit percentage of people that will never ever use that drive.
Yep.
There would be people that would be buying a PS5 that have never seen a disc like that in their life.
Yeah.
So strapping that into a PS5 and then having every single person accrue the additional cost makes zero sense.
Yeah. Dude, it's not only that, Cohh. Like, we've been talking about this for a while. A lot of my friends, they don't use the disc drive. It's a sense of comfort that it's there.
Yeah.
And so it's a backup and it's it's game preservation. And so removing it doesn't remove their utility of it, because they would never use it. It removes the possible future utility of it if they ever need it. And that's a big deal to them. And that is legit.
The entire do you really own games conversation.
Oh yeah.
Which I think you know, those same people are the people who are going to be wanting to buy that disc drive. So it's which is funny, because Sony is driving them to make it is charging them more to have that safety.
If you kill everybody else's horse, then your breeder stall is going to do really well. Like, that's what's so funny. That is, and so Knucklehead, in a way, I mean, probably
makes sense.
Next up, let's see. So I'll get through these. Quartermaster Fullerine, ACG patron for 7 years. Congrats on 10 years doing YouTube. You always talk about keeping outside interests top in your life as a creator, and talked about it with JP as well when he was on. But what do Kidsmoove and Cohh do outside of games that they love? So is there one or two hobbies that you guys are huge fans of?
Go for it, kid.
You're muted.
You're muted, by the way.
There you go. Muted.
You're actually muted in Zoom.
Of course, my bad. There we go. Hobbies outside of gaming?
Yeah. I love how you sound. It sounds mysterious.
Yeah,
it's so mysterious. He's like,
guys, as a parent, I can tell you, I know you have kids and I know you play games. So there's a very good chance you don't have hobbies, and that's your entire life.
That's you're close, but I still got a few. I just kind of grew like mostly out of them. So outside of playing video games, obviously YouTube. I don't know if that still counts as playing, but YouTube. But more so content creation in terms of like I do music. I used to do music, like actually, try to do something with it. But now I do it kind of just like
on the side, sort of
on the side. Yeah, put something out, try to utilize that type of skill to something. I also like to like write content. Like I wrote like, you know, screenplays and little short
cool.
stories. Didn't do anything with them, but in this climate, I probably should.
I was gonna say you got the perfect platform,
considering the streaming platforms and whatnot. But yeah, like I like to like just create things because I always pretty much enjoy like music, movies, TV shows, and I always want to get into it some way, somehow. And like that's what I kind of like to do when I have the time. I'll sit down and put something together and see what I can do with it.
That's awesome.
I'll tell you a quick little story.
Go for it.
I once wrote a video game, and when I'm saying this loosely because I don't think how video games are written this way, but I wrote a story that was intended for a video game that was inspired by ESPN. I was a big fan, and this is me being ignorant. Like wrestling had nothing to do with ESPN, right? That's their own network. I was a big wrestling fan back then. I was so amped because Def Jam Vendetta had just came out, and I was playing like NBA Street and all this stuff. So what I did was I put this game together that kind of had all these elements, and I looked on the back of Def Jam Vendetta to get EA access, EA Sports Big's address. And this is where they put it at the bottom of the back of the case. So I wrote it up and I mailed it. And I don't know how many stamps my mom gave me, but I mailed it out to them and they wrote me back.
Oh, dude.
Yes, but it was something generic. They were just saying like, thank you with the EA logo on it. And I was just so hyped because I didn't think they would write me back. But that was like one of the one things I did gaming related that I was like, hey, like I got the story. And this is what I want you guys. I remember saying, this is the game I want you guys to make.
I love it.
I can imagine being like, so then I was playing NBA Street last year. Turns out they used my story and didn't tell me.
Yeah. Babylon 5 Deep Space Nine moment where you're like, I think they just took all my shit. What about you, Cohh? Do you have any I know kids, all that, but I mean,
so
music, obviously.
I have a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 7-year-old.
So you've had sex 3 times. After that,
just 3. That's
just
it.
3.
Yep. Then I saw the doctor.
Yeah,
we're good. Right. That's it.
You're like, we're done.
That's it. So, but that is most of my time. Especially as of the last couple years in particular. I stream a lot, and life alone with the amount that I streamed was a lot, and now I'm doing that with 3 small humans as well. So that's been a big thing. So that's most of my life is that and that. However, especially over the last couple of years, I have really started diversifying. I've been doing this, like I said, over a decade. So I'm starting to kind of go outside my boundaries a bit. I've started. I'm actually a creator scout with A16Z. So I've met with over 60 teams in the last year that are doing all sorts of infrastructural game dev stuff, game projects themselves. I've been doing some investing in those. I'm also doing advising now. So I'm actually advising with now 7 or 8 different companies on like ways their game can be better, targeted development, things of that like that. I'm also the executive producer on a game called Emberville. So I'm actually a full-time game dev myself.
Oh, nice.
With a very cool game. Like this game, every time I meet with them every week, it gets more and more awesome. We have a big news update coming at the end of October, and we're shooting for EA early next year, but it's a when it's done project. So it'll be here when it's here. And outside of that, I haven't been able to for a while, but my hobby is motorcycles. So I've got 4 bikes and
sport or moto?
Sport.
Like sport.
Sport cruiser. So
gotcha.
yeah. And that's my zen. That's where I go when I need to get away. It's the only thing in my life I do without a phone. So yeah, it's very nice. But
people
outside of
never
that,
understand that unless you've done it. Because I grew up with motorbikes, it's cars now because of where I live, but driving when you're alone, there's just something about that is fantastic.
Yeah. And there's also the thing that I love about motorcycles is you can die at any second. And for me, that means that, and most importantly, you can at any second due to other people being dumb.
Yeah.
So what that means is you are totally connected to the experience 100% of the time. Yeah. There's not a second where you can be distracted. And I really like that as somebody with ADHD, like having something my brain has to pay full attention to, or terrible things will happen to me physically.
Yep.
That sounded like a bad thing initially, the fact that you can die at any second, but it sounds like a meditative
It very much is. In fact, that's what I say. Like I said, riding is my zen. It's my meditation, because it kind of forces me to do it. I like to say that not only the obvious, dress for the slide, not the ride, but when you're on a motorcycle, you have a superpower. You are an actual superhero. You have the power of total invisibility.
Yeah.
It does not matter if another human is making
Nope.
eye contact with you. There are times when their brain is checked out or they're playing on their phone or something, and they will make eye contact with you and drive right into you. So you have to drive your bike like no one knows you're there.
Yeah.
And just doing that again makes your brain work overtime and like thinking of angles and directions and okay, that car's coming this way. Where am I going? Where's my outs and all that kind of stuff. So it's great and I love it. And unfortunately, I haven't had any time lately, but looking forward to getting back out.
Awesome. What about you, Johnny? You got any others? Any new hobbies?
Making music,
Yeah.
reading some books, playing
What
chess.
kind of music do you make?
So I make kind of like lately it's instrumental melodic rock type stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So it's all coming from a melody. So there's a melody that like really speaks to me or sticks with me, and then I build something around that, and that's the fun of it for me.
Yeah, and for me, still reading, writing. I'm also, and I've been doing this longer than I've been doing YouTube. I'm also consulting on games, which is still very fun because all your ideas don't go into the game. It's like they might just say, what's this? You know, have you, like, what would you think if you saw this? What might make this game better? And consulting on games, by the way, no, I would never review a game I consulted on. In fact, I would stop consulting well before the game was even in like a beta form. It's
Full
very,
transparency. Full transparency.
yeah, it is very fun to do. And it is cool to see somebody who's like, hey, I watched a video. You talked about something I never heard you talk or never heard somebody talk about as a reviewer. Do you want to go check this out? And I'll be like, oh yeah, you know, as long as, again, I'm never touching that thing in any kind of like quality where I'm talking about the quality. And that has been a blast doing that a little bit more. Music, same. Still teaching martial arts. That's always going to be like the main thing for me. It's a blast to teach people. And then master classes every week, man. I take a new master class, and it sucks because they cost a lot and I don't make a ton of money, but it's like it keeps me. If I don't do a master class a day, or if I don't do something very studious focused, like what Cohh was talking about with motorbikes or what have you, I have a hard time sleeping, and I barely sleep anyway. So I've found that if I do like 3 or 4 hours of study every night, then I can go to sleep, and it definitely helps everything else, the channel.
Anything that interests you kind of study? Do you like have a list you work through? Like
I do work through a master class list that I have. So I go to the master class website or any of those websites. Aaron Sorkin's script writing one I did and got to talk to him. This was the first one he did where he actually looked at your stuff, which was cool. And then later on, it's just more, you know, watching videos. It's honestly, if it can help the channel, you know, I'll look at that. If it can be about thought processes, there's some there that are, you know, talking about how to build a business or how to extend, get out. You know, a lot of us sit. Once you're somewhat successful, you'll be like, I'm the opposite, and I'm always trying to do stuff. So I'm actually looking for like classes on how to control yourself, because you were talking about ADHD or whatever. I don't know what I have. It's not that. It's project focus. That's what I did prior to this job, was set up call centers. And so the idea of setting up a project is awesome to me. And so masterclass just sort of replaces that. And I love doing something from start to finish and being like, I built that, and then I'm done. And I move on. So whatever I can, you know, a lot of computer stuff is fun, you know, and like what you and I talked about prior, a lot of idle hands in shit I shouldn't be doing, you know, where you're like, you know what, I'll try to program my own OBS extension. And then you break the entire PC. You're like, I probably should have paid somebody to do that. So next up, we have Strangers Mix Better. Carrick, I found you on Total Biscuits podcast. I returned to you when I found a piece of your writing online. Oh, I know. Okay, I know how. And I made my full return during the Cyberpunk release. Thanks for keeping it real despite the financial effects. Here's $10. Go buy some Coke, Crank, or any other energy drink that sounds like a drug. I wish you all the best.
I was gonna say, Coke and Crank in that order. Yeah. Is this? Oh my.
Now for my question. Name one thing you guys are all thankful for. Cheesy, I know, but I'm currently feeling nostalgic. You know, I don't know, man. I don't know if I don't really think about thankfulness that much. Like, we usually say it, like, I'll be like, oh, I'm thankful I've known Johnny for 7 years, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he's helped me and he's made my entire weeks better, or Reg, or all the guys I know. But it's like thankfulness. I'm thankful for my dogs. That sounds really dumb, but I don't care. If I didn't have my dogs, my life would be dramatically worse. Dramatically worse. They are like constant companions when the wife's at work.
Yeah.
And you have a little dude who's like, you close that door, 3 minutes later, he thought you died. He's like, he didn't hear you. That dog shows up at the door and he's like, you're back. And you're all, I've been here all the time. He's like, no, seriously, man.
Of his life.
I'm glad you're back. And their undying loyalty, you know, which I really like. And so going for walks with the dogs, playing with the dogs, I'm super thankful for like having the pets and being able to, because I know a lot of people live in places they can't have an animal. That would suck. I saw your video. You were talking to Pirate Software and he has ferrets, and I'm a huge ferret fan. We had ferrets and he was talking about the playful and all that stuff. That kind of thing, especially for a job like ours, where maybe the other, you're working at home and somebody's away or what have you, it's super helpful. And yeah, that would be mine. What about your guys?
I gotta say, I'm thankful for my family, my wife, for sure, and because they're very compatible with the things I want to jump into, right?
Sure.
Obviously, being a YouTuber, somebody has to tolerate this, and this is just like, for me, I'm not as obviously as big as, you know, the rest of the guys here. You know what I mean? Where this is like a big part of you. This is something kind of like I'm doing, you know what I mean? It obviously it doesn't pay the bills, but it's something that I want to do. And sometimes it requires it for me to get certain places with it. I need to be in front of a computer or in a podcast for a few hours, or tied to a game for multiple days, you know, out of the week. Or, you know, we had the opportunity when E3 was a thing to go there, hey, you do that. These were things that, you know, I don't think I would be comfortable. Like, I'm happy I didn't have to do it alone, but I have someone that allows me to have fun and be a kid with this. Because, you know, other people, you know,
yeah, I know where you're going with this. Yeah,
it looked like it's just like, oh, what a dork. And like, I get like when people like ask me at work, like, oh, what do you do for fun? And I'm like, do I tell them or do I keep this to myself? Type of attitude. But so for them to, when I first got on YouTube, like, hey, I think I want to do like, you know, something on YouTube. And then sometimes I get kind of very like corny and inspired. And I want to do a skit, put a wig on. They'll like, I can buy it and be comfortable at home.
Absolutely.
Playing as these different characters and whatnot. And they're with it. They'll watch it and it's not cringy. That's the one thing, is not feeling cringe when my, like, you know, my wife or my kids are watching some content of mine, whether it be a stream, whether it be a review, or whether it be a skit I do. And they're down with it wherever I wanted to do. If I come up with an idea, they're there to support me. Somebody may have to hold the camera or whatever, but yes, they've been a big part of it and allow me to keep doing it. Because otherwise, well, I probably would have just quit.
Yeah, definitely. Even if it's passive support, it's still support, like the ability for you to go off and do your own thing. What about you, Johnny?
Well, I think a lot about thankfulness. I used to do like journaling and everything. It was kind of like a technique to, like, you know, focus on good stuff and start to notice good stuff. So I'm very used to even like being thankful for a great cup of coffee that I had today. You know, like small things.
A Monster energy drink, not sponsored by Monster. Go.
Yeah, great. You know, a great drink. But certainly the thing they say about like, don't meet your heroes. I've found that meeting some of my, quote, I'm not going to say heroes, but like people I admire, like yourself, Carrick. You know, I was a fan. We met through the Discord. We chatted, and it turns out, you know what? You're just a person, right? You're not like some kind of magical entity or something. Cohh, I've watched you for many years.
Wait, he's not?
He's not.
No. Johnny's seen my idiosyncrasies. He's just a very patient man.
Oh.
You know, Cohh, I watched you for many years, man. You know, always respect you, and being able to talk to you and see like, oh, it's a real person. And people at my job who I thought were like these untouchable software engineer guys. And then you talk to them. They're just people too, right? And the beauty of that is just like this humane thing where like, we're all just people in a way, you know, we're all just having a crack. We do some stuff well, we screw up sometimes, and it's great, you know? So I love that perspective of when you do get to talk to some people who seem like, you know, on a pedestal or greater than, and you see that they're just people. So I think this is one of the cool things that this podcast does, and Cohh's podcast does as well. It's just kind of bringing down to earth the people who might seem otherwise, untouchable or something behind the glass when you're just watching YouTube videos from them or streams from them.
Yeah, no, I get it. What about you, Cohh?
So I think for me, especially over the last like 4 years in particular, but the last couple for sure. I and I'm sure Kid could probably relate to this. Having kids changed a lot of things in my life. And one of the biggest things that it did was make me acutely aware
of how little you mattered. I'm just joking. Sorry.
Not wrong, but most importantly of how very brief all of this is.
Oh yeah.
How everything is really an amazing sequence of 0.01 chances in a row.
Yep.
And you asked me what I'm thankful for. I mean, these days, everything. I mean, I was paycheck to paycheck for 30 years of my life. I still, doing this 10 years now, have trouble like realizing like, okay, I'm not going to wake up. Like this is all happening.
Yeah, right.
It's that kind of situation. Every time I walk into my studio, I smile, and I make a point to do that because I'm. It's one of those things where I'm trying to fundamentally appreciate what is here, what I have. In many ways, I'm exactly like how you said earlier, Karak, where you were saying like you like to just keep moving forward. I'm guessing for you may be like me, where it's hard to sometimes to slow down and really take account and appreciate what you have, and not just constantly be thinking about what you need to work on or how what you have can be better or stuff like that. And they say that the key to happiness is fundamentally appreciating what you have instead of worrying about what you don't.
Yep.
And that is something that I've been trying to do, particularly over the last few years, realizing that as I hang out with my kids, like just a few days ago, I'm pushing my 5-year-old on the swing, and I go to push my 7-year-old, and I realize he's pumping his own legs, and I give him one more push. I give him one more push, and he's like, "Daddy, you don't need to do that anymore. I can do it myself." And I was just like,
"You're like, can Dad push you anyway?
Can I?" And it's like these little moments where it's like, we have to realize that even though it's very easy as humans, because we're programmed to do so, to get into these streamlined modes where everything just goes by us and we're just focused on what's directly in front of us. It's really important to realize that every single moment that passes is a unique moment that will never happen again, and that everything around us is to be appreciated and at that moment for what it is. So what am I thankful for these days? Absolutely everything. And I could tell you why I'm thankful for everything, but we don't have 4 hours, so I'll just leave it at that.
I think also I do want to add, weirdly enough, this is going to sound really weird, but I talked to Total Biscuit before he passed away about this because, we didn't get along on socially. There were some arguments that, like, he was doing some stuff on his YouTube channel. I was like, what the hell are you doing? I was definitely more outspoken on what he was doing at the time. And he reached out and he helped me for no reason. And I'm going to talk about this 100 times. I don't care if I talk about it 100 times. People can just leave the podcast. Like, I will always say this. He reached out to me for no reason whatsoever when I was having problems with YouTube. And out of the blue, he's like, hey, dude, do you need help with this? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, hey, do you want to come on the podcast? I started talking to him. By the time I was done, I was like, that guy is a true friend. Like, he was awesome. He helped me in a bunch of stuff. He was a great guy. But one of the things he did tell me is he's like, how do you do so many reviews without getting burned out? And I'm like, if I ever dislike games, so this is what I'm thankful for. I love games, even bad ones, because it's an experience that I can look back and be like, dude, I had to play Gene Rain. Like, until you've played Gene Rain, you haven't played a bad game. Like, you don't even know what a bad game is. But I'm thankful that I love games, because if that ever happens, I told JP this when he came on, because we were talking about burnout and he was talking about vacation stuff. If it ever happens, you will literally just see me close my Patreon and walk away, because it is my love too. And they always say, watch out about taking your hobby and your love and making them your business. And I was like, well, I don't seem to have that issue outside of this, so I'm going to do it this time. I've done it with other hobbies and it's been fine, but I'm really thankful I love games, because I'm telling you guys, man, sometimes when I listen to people talk about games, I'm like, do you like games?
Do you even like? Oh, dude, do you even like games?
And no shade on anybody, But
some of the things that even the largest streamers on the platform, like, oh, I don't want to play this, but there's nothing else right now. And
yeah,
like,
and dude, so this will happen to me too. Cohh, you said something brilliant, and by the way, you've got 15 minutes, right? You said about 2.5 hours. Okay, so one of the things you said earlier was you were talking about like you sort of try to choose games that interest you. That's what, even as a reviewer, that's what I do. I'll still pick a game that surprises me or somebody. And if an indie asks me to review their game and I say, yeah, and a AAA says, do you want to review their game and it overlaps? I'll say no. I've already said yes to these guys. I'll pass up the AAA game because I said this. I usually try to look at games that in some way interest me. And I think that helps. That's one thing. But also just a love for the game and not let a bad experience or bad companies. Like I'll get fiery. I'll talk about a company. And then 5 minutes later, Johnny and I are playing. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to go play this game. And he's like, that's from the company you just said you hated. And I'm like, right, but it's not from the devs who put this game to. It's not the product. I still want to check out the game. I may hate the company and what they do, or in some alternative way, but it's like, do I want to play Assassin's Creed Shadows, for instance? Yes, very much so. Very much so. That would be really weird if I didn't. And if anybody ever hears me, you can call me out on this. If you ever hear me start talking like that, I need to know, because that's the time when I'm like, okay, I'm probably not impartial anymore, and I just need to, whether it be take a vacation or step away, because the love of games is important when you cover the goddamn things. And it seems like a lot of people lately are in it, or they're losing that. And it's not hard to understand why either. Lord Hippopotama Blunderbuss says, Cohh and Carrick, I subscribe to only 3 channels on social media. Carrick, Cohh, and my own.
Nice. I appreciate it.
Both of you are known for very high output. Anything you learned or can pass on to others as bits of advice for that kind of schedule. And then another one overlapping with this from Tigger. He says, Cohh streamed for ages in a row. Any health impact? So let's just merge those two, because I definitely, especially when I started, did a ton of reviews. You did streaming for 2,000 days or more than that.
2,000 days straight.
Yeah, which that's ridiculous. But anyway, ignoring that we know that, did you take anything from it? Or was there
hugely.
any one particular thing or something that you're like,
so
I need to tell others?
Before I started my 2,000 day, or before I started the streak, and it didn't start as a 2,000 day. It started as a 90-day challenge to 180 to 6 months to 1 year.
That's how it happens.
So just kept going.
That's how it happens.
Before I started that streak, I had actually tried to brute force Twitch. And what I mean by that is that I had a little bit of success at the beginning. In fact, at the end of my first week streaming on Twitch, I averaged just under 200 viewers.
That's not bad at all.
As a brand new streamer.
Yeah.
And it was because I had done what I would recommend to people these days, but I had done that without understanding or realizing it. And funny enough, when people get success by doing things they don't understand or realize, they got lucky, right? Because that's what luck is. So I got lucky at the very beginning of my streaming career. And I tried to brute force Twitch. So I streamed, I would wake up, I would stream until I could not anymore. And I would go to bed. And I did that for 3 months. At the end of my stream, on the last day of the 3 months, I was playing my favorite game. It's one of my favorite games of all time, the original Deus Ex.
Oh, so good.
I maxed out at 29 viewers that day, and by the time I turned my stream off, I had lost followers for a 14-hour stream. So I told myself, this is not working.
Right.
Like clearly something happened I didn't understand. Like I need to either figure this out, or I need to go to the next thing. Because Twitch for me at that point was the next thing. I had left my job at IT to find my passion in life. I had tried DJing, I had done game dev, I produced music for a while, and now it was Twitch. So that was the next step on my, let me find what I want to do for my journey.
Right.
And so I got to the point where I was like, okay, either we fix it or I move on. And at that point, I decided to treat Twitch like my IT job. I said, okay, I looked around Twitch and I said, nobody is doing this. Nobody's waking up every day at 8 a.m. to start their stream like a job. Nobody is safe for work on this platform. Nobody. I couldn't watch any streamer on Twitch 10 years ago at my job. It would not have been feasible. F-bomb, 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 F-bomb. Even like there was even like homophobia and racism. That
was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy. Yeah.
So like I said, okay, we're going to do safe for work. At that point, I also decided like, okay, I'm going to run my channel because I had led MMO guilds for 10 years. So I was like, I'm going to run my channel like an MMO guild. So I want people to be able to talk. I want people to make friends. I want this to be like the Cheers of gaming. Like leave your politics, your religion, and all that stuff at the door. Take your shoes off. Come in. We're talking about games. Say hi. We're all friends here enjoying video games. That's the whole point of the channel. That's when everything started. That's when to put it bluntly, my success started. And it involved a whole lot of other research and this whole thing called positioning, which we don't have time to get into.
Yeah.
It's a whole different thing. That's the kind of the business side of Twitch. But the other side of Twitch is where kind of everything has been going. And that is into this kind of like just awesome, free-flowing community that comes back every day at the same time. We're all kind of in it together. In some cases, you know, I have people that have been sub for 10 plus years. But when I made that conversion, when I decided, like, I was wanting to make success, I was wanting to make, most importantly, long-term success. I realized that this is not, funny enough, it's going to sound weird, but it's not a sprint, it's an endurance race. And I realized that if I wanted success on this platform, I was never going to be one of those sprinters. Like, I needed to do this smart and over time and slowly. And that's what I did. So over time, everything has been working towards this being sustainable. So I'm one of the only streamers of my size that I stream for 3 or 4 hours, then I take an hour lunch break. I turn my stream off, I leave my office, I run errands or do stuff I need to, and I come back. That is suicide on my metrics. Suicide. And whenever a streamer turns a stream off, especially in their main time slot, when they turn it back on, they're going to get 50 to 60% of their numbers maximum. That's just how it works. If I would work through lunch every day, my average would be hugely higher. I'd have more subs, all sorts of things. But I also want to do this for another 20 years.
Yeah.
So I'm taking it slow. I'm doing, you know, and I'm thrilled with my level of success. I don't need to be continually pushing myself, especially to an unhealthy level. I have 3 kids. You know, it is in my interest, and most importantly, their interest, for me to be around as long as possible.
Yeah.
So the whole TLDR of everything I've been saying here is responsible consistency.
Yeah.
That is what I recommend to new people. You do not need a 2,000 everyday challenge. One of the only reasons I was able to do that was because I had and have an incredibly supportive partner. Like, there's no question I would not have been able to do my 2,000 day challenge without my wife.
Yeah.
Like, she was there for that. And that's a huge part of it. She's one of the, I mean, I couldn't do what I'm doing today without my wife helping me with everything. So it's having a support structure is also incredibly important. I would never recommend marathon streaming to somebody that does not have, like, dependents or not people that are supporting them. Yeah, is the best way to say it. Yeah. So that's important. But yeah, that's the big thing. It's really easy in our industry to get into this mindset where I am self-employed. Every single minute I put into this, I am getting something out of it, and every minute I'm not doing it, I am not only not gaining something, I'm
losing something. Yeah. Yeah.
And that is one of the most dangerous mindsets somebody that gets success in this industry can feel. And I can tell you, I have seen so many streamers over my last decade, very talented people, burn themselves out like a moth running into a light, and then leaving because they treat it as a sprint, not an endurance, and they just completely exhausted their fuel and fire before they
ended up getting huge success. Or do you think they were
before,
getting
in
success?
Some cases, even the success they wanted, like a lot of times you need you need to grow roots, and roots grow at their own pace.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's more fundamentally understanding your position, fundamentally understanding that, you know, attrition is natural.
Yeah.
And not losing viewers actually means you're doing great. Like, it is natural for a Twitch streamer to lose followers over time. Yeah. So if you are maintaining viewership for a period of time, you're actually gaining. You're doing okay, because and a lot of people don't realize that. And then they think they need to stream more or work harder. I need to see more, blah, 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 because they don't understand their situation. So they burn themselves out, when instead, if they just would have kept going like this, looking for those opportunities, looking for those positioning moments, biding their time and being smart about it, then, you know, they find those opportunities. Another big thing that I always come back to about this stuff, especially when it comes to consistency, schedule, that kind of stuff, work smarter, not harder, will get you so much further on these platforms.
Yeah.
Look at Pirate Software. Yeah. I mean, this is a guy that streamed in obscurity for 6 years, and then he really drilled down and thought about it. And when we were talking to him on my podcast about it.
Yeah, I love his idea.
Schedule. Yeah. He was like, I'm going to make this specific type of content. I'm going to put it online at this specific time using these specific channels. He didn't luck into being successful.
No. He
got there by working for it. Now, granted, of course, it also helps that he's an extremely personable guy that has lots of great advice. But the point is that there's, for every Pirate Software you see that's public, for every me you see that's public, for any popular person you see that's public, There's 1,000 people just as qualified that aren't as public, that aren't as popular. And you might be one of those people that could be really fun to watch and really cool and a great streamer. But if you don't like do what you need to do, if you don't work for it and put yourself in a position where, you know, people are going to see it, if you don't light your own beacon of Gondor, which you have to do because no one's going to do it for you, then, you know, this is not an if you build it, they will come situation.
Yeah.
Live streaming in our content creation is like surfing. You can't go to a beach without waves and expect to surf. You got to pick up your board and you got to take it to where the waves are. And finding the waves that are the right style for you, the waves that are going to fit how you want to surf, that's up to you. So it's a, you know,
right.
playing into the,
because if you don't have the right board
limits,
for the type of wave, like.
Yeah, and I would say, weirdly enough, mine is.
Last thing I'll say, very last thing I'll say to actually answer your question, it all plays into health. So understanding all this stuff is how you understand your personal limits. You understand what you can do healthily. You understand what you can do. Some people can, perfect example. You just said, I can stay up for 24 hours like it's nothing. I can't do that. Not at 40 years old. That would be a health thing for me, especially these days. So it's kind of like, you know, knowing where your limits are and then, to put it bluntly, exploiting that to give yourself the best chance of success while maintaining that sense of self responsibility. That's where I would recommend. That's where success is. Yeah,
I would say for me, because YouTube and reviews are a little different where you don't know when they're going to come in. What I did when I started was I looked at weaknesses in other channels, and where for example, sound, music, and voice is just never covered. I would see people buying OSTs and talking about them for hours, and I would never see anybody review or talk about the music in games. So I covered that. And then the other one was Patreon and Discord. Like, I am in the Discord all the time, and when I have people come in, and I'm sure some people are like, I wish he wasn't, but I get people in the Discord who are like, holy crap, the person's actually here streaming games in Discord. It's not just a place for them to gain money or sort of leave it for everybody else to take care of. I looked at particular things that worked for me. And when I lost power for almost an entire month in January, we had all the issues here. I told my wife, I'm like, yeah, we just have to see how this works out, because like, I'm not covering some of the biggest games, blah, blah, blah. And yes, there was an issue where there was a month where it was a little lean. And then I remember one day doing a review and it was like, boom. And people showed up again, and it was like, oh, I didn't, you know, like you were gone for a while. You were doing podcasts mostly. You were gone. And the thing about realizing that if you do go down, it happens, or if you do see sort of stability, it's not bad. I'm so stunned that when we see every endurance race, we see race car drivers, we see everybody win by sticking it all the way through and watching the hot shots crash, that people don't do that as YouTubers or Twitch streamers very often. And you're like, dude, every single thing you will see, from martial artists to, I mean, kids learning stuff, you will always see that the people who are consistently, you know, figuring things out and moving forward are the ones who will be there. The other person might shine bright for a second, but then there's a chance that they're going to end up, you know, just falling to the wayside.
It's not flashy, the consistency.
Exactly. Yeah. Man. Learning what to look for, to understand that you're successful, it's so important. Like, that's one of the things that drives me crazy when you hear, and when you hear people be like, oh, well, if you look at your viewer numbers and it depresses you, hide your numbers, hide your followers, don't ever pay attention to your metrics, right? Just focus on the show. It's like, no, dude, that's the opposite. What you need to be doing is working towards being comfortable with your metrics.
Yeah.
Work towards embracing them and using them to make what you want to do more successful.
Yeah.
But this idea of like shutting everything out that bothers you, it's like you grow best under stress.
Yeah.
Like absorb that. Don't push it away. You're only shooting yourself in the foot in a lot of ways.
Or dude, you'll make a bad decision on the information that you think you have, but you haven't looked at your numbers. And you'll make a decision based on the numbers you thought you were on. And then you'll go and look and be like, oh, whoa, I changed the schedule or this, when actually I could have just continued doing this and it would have worked great for my channel. You just have to be aware of that. I know that Cohh has to go. We're going to keep going. Will that work for your stream? You'll just close yours down?
I can just shut off from here, and I'll be sure to check the rest out on your YouTube.
So you were talking about something I want to mention just for a second that I thought was funny. We were talking about like, it's easy to just get your head down. I was looking at our tweets or DMs a while ago, and like, I would disappear for 8 months I'd be like, hey, do you want to do something? Yeah, let's try to figure out. You were really busy. I was really busy. And then I'd show back up and I'd be like, dude, sorry.
6 months later, you'd show up and be like, hey, sorry, you want to do it this week? And I'll be like, I'll let you know. 5 months later.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. My wife said I couldn't then, but I might be able to now.
Yeah,
and then you'd be like, hey, let me check my schedule. 4 months later, hey, I got an opening.
Yeah, it does suck, but
we had
it's
a
awesome.
5-minute conversation play out over the course of about 2 years.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. But I mean, I do want to say how much I appreciate it because, dude, seriously, I don't watch a lot of Twitch. I do find your stuff like super easy to actually sit down and engage with and watch. And to me, whether that be just it's a mixture of what you play as well as you, and it's super inspiring to see somebody on Twitch that, not to be rude, but hasn't gone to the whatever lengths we see some people go because of social reasons where they think it'll gather them more followers, that, by the way, if they become outside of the zeitgeist, they'll lose those people. And it's been awesome to see you do that.
Thank you. That's a kind of success that some people love, and it's their life, and more power to them. But I feel like there's different types of success in our industry.
Yeah.
And figuring out which one fits best you and what you want from it is a journey for every person, for sure.
Yeah. Well, with those last words, Cohh, man, dude, seriously. I mean, seriously, this has been incredible to finally have you on. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know you're going to go back and stream. What are you streaming today?
I will actually, now is dad time. So I'm off with my kids until 6:30. If I do get time to get back on in the evenings, tonight, I just finished the casting of Frank Stone last night. Funny enough, not a porno. And
yeah, that's
tonight...
what I thought when I reviewed it. I was like, this name is going to trigger people.
Yeah. I wonder if Frank got the part.
Yeah.
Anyways, no, but I finished that last night. Definitely too bad we couldn't talk about it. Not my favorite Supermassive game.
Yeah, I liked it, but it's definitely lower rated than I thought it was going to be.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people did not.
I currently have open playthroughs in Core Keeper, Wukong, Satisfactory. I'm still playing Space Marine 2. And for the first time, I found out about this. I'm streaming Frostpunk 2 for the first time in the world tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. ET.
Oh, damn.
Like,
oh, wow.
Amazing.
Nice.
So, yeah, thanks to them. So we're going to be playing Frostpunk 2 world first little presentation tomorrow morning and at 8 a.m. ET. So
excellent.
That's the current plan, and we'll be going from there.
Well, thank you very much for coming. Everybody get a chance. Watch his Frostpunk 2. I can't, I don't know. I haven't read the embargo, so I can't even tell if I'm playing it or not. Yeah. Yeah, have a good one, Cohh. Thank you very much, man. I absolutely appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate your time. And
see ya.
Yeah.
See you, man.
Have a good
Nice to meet you, Cohh.
Nice to meet you too, man. Now I have to figure out how to close all this because I've never done it like this before.
You can just
give me 1 second while I awkwardly fumble through here.
Yeah, no worries. I like casting a Frank Stone, and Cohh is wrong for sure. I'm just
how dare? How
I'm
dare?
just joking.
All right, see you guys. Have a good one.
See ya, man.
See ya.
Yeah, dude, that was awesome. I get Alt F4 for Cohh. Yeah. Smooth, you're still good to go?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So moving on from there, first of all, everybody, if you get a chance, go check him out. I'm always forgetting that there's such a big divide between Twitch and YouTube. So when I said I had Cohh on, everybody in my chat was like, who? And I was all, dude, wait, what? Who? But then it dawned on me, it's like, well, he isn't super flashy. He's just, it's like at different times.
It might be the same thing on his side where
it is on Twitch. Yeah. I've done I did the DLC podcast, Christian Spicers, and a couple others. And people be like, oh, who's Carrick? Because they're just Twitch is Twitch, YouTube. And the two just don't align, which I wish I had been able to ask him, because even he's seen difficulty at times getting YouTube to align with what he wants to put out on
or
it's hard,
converting.
Man. It is hard. Moving on questions, we have even more. Yellow Bellied Mustard says, Carrick, what's the name of the book you explained in the prior podcast about cyberpunk critique? I'm not going to look in the middle of the podcast, but it is, actually I can while we're doing this. Next question while I look at that, says, Neilk says, Cohh and Carrick, I'll just answer, both studied games or created mods. Do you ever feel like you wish you had stayed developing them? Boy, that's a good question, right? In the current today's environment, I don't know, man. Today's environment's pretty rough on on developers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's very rough.
that's a good question, man. You know, I wish I did more, but at the same time, I'm happy where I am. It is definitely something where I do not have a problem where I am. So I would say that I don't sit here and rue that I'm not doing it anymore, and that I'm not doing mods, because I don't know where that would have went. That was it was writing music, writing stories. So the critique is called Beyond Cyberpunk: New Critical Perspectives, and it is not cheap, by the way, just so that you know. And then last up, we got some questions from Discord, and then we'll jump back into more topics. Jesus Crust says, "Are there?"
Sorry, I'm just gonna take a 2-minute break. I'll still hear you. I'll be right back.
Jesus Crust was saying, are there any other IPs that you guys wish would be revived by Sony? Personally, I'd love to get more Uncharted, similar to Lost Legacy. First of all, I agree, and you're a great person, probably the best person I've ever met, because you like Lost Legacy. I love that game. Is there any IP from Sony that you wish would come back?
Oh man. Yeah, I do like I do want to get but I don't know how I'm gonna do this now, but I think they should bring back Resistance.
Yeah, I was gonna say Killzone and Resistance, by the way.
Yeah, especially in this climate, since they have a lot of, if they wanted to really ignite multiplayer, they have some IPs they should toy around with.
Absolutely.
Like SOCOM, I don't see why that hasn't been done yet. I'm trying to think. My favorite PlayStation franchise, though, believe it or not, this is probably going to sound awkward. I want to see The Getaway come back.
Oh, damn. That's a blast from the past. I thought you were going to say Infamous, because multiple people are saying Infamous in here.
Yeah, Infamous is cool, but I think it's still recent. It still looks like a decent game today. It's still pretty decent, but like The Getaway, I just remember they had two of them. They had the original, and they had like Black Monday. That game just had some things about it that it did that doesn't happen today, like the injuries.
Yeah.
That you having to you recover, you have to lean against the wall, stay out of the line of fight, and it was very cinematic. That game, if we paid attention more about that game, that kind of shined the light of where Sony was going with their cinematic experiences. Yeah. I think that was London Studios that did that.
It was London Studios. It was. Yeah.
The Getaway was probably my favorite during the PS2 era. It was like one of my favorite games. I honestly, this is going to also sound crazy. I turned down Vice City and to play The Getaway, because I think it was this weird time when Grand Theft Auto actually used to come out annually. I think Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City came out back to back. My friends were getting that, and I saw Getaway, and I think in a freaking subscription of Game Informer or something, and I thought it looked good. So I was all about the graphics, so I bought that, and my I didn't buy Grand Theft Auto. My friends, I seen them watch Vice City and all that stuff, and I eventually played it, but during that time, I was playing The Getaway, and I think I played through that game like 4 or 5 times.
Here on Business Super Chat, thank you guys for making the Friday a team win for everybody, $7.50. Thank you very much. If you aren't subscribed, please subscribe. And remember, you can always, I would love for you to review us on Spotify and iTunes. It does actually help the channel grow, especially because we just switched this over. We actually just got monetized too, which is pretty nice. Hopefully there's not a bunch of ads playing. I think I turned them all off. So there we go. We got monetized, but then I turned off all the friggin'
nice.
Think I did. Yeah, whatever. It's the way it is. But yeah, I definitely appreciate all that kind of stuff, especially because I was gonna tell Cohh this. One of the things that I'm happy about is, since we don't do sponsors, because sponsorship is lowering, you're hearing all these YouTubers talking about getting less money. I never got money. So it's amazing. So when I'm just like, and I hear all these, oh, I'm getting less this, less that. And I'm like, you know what? It's good to not be getting a bunch, because then when it drops, you don't, look and go, where am I?
So you don't have the effect of losing anything.
Yeah. I don't have to worry about Manscaped charging me less money or giving me less money for me to talk about trimming my nuts, man. Dude, there's nothing I find more distasteful than opening a video, not a stream, but a video, and the first 45 seconds are a ad for something else to artificially bloat their watch time. I'm like,
And
dude.
by the way,
Yeah.
thank you for not making us have to talk about Manscaped, like as a part of our
Oh, dude. Now
process.
Well,
Can
what
you
did I
imagine?
did the fake one, Manscaped, right? Where
We
it was
did
the
the
guy
fake
with the
one.
lawnmower shaving his balls off. Yeah. I do love faking ads. Like faking ads is a blast, but doing real ones, nah, not for me. Speaking of ads, he's got his Verta gear chair he's sitting in. Smooth sitting in a Verta gear.
Yeah,
Gaming
you know what,
chair.
dude, bro, like, so story of how I got this, my job, the guy, a guy I met, he just moved into this place, and he said he wanted to get more of a regular office here. He said the chair he has, it seems like more for gaming, and he's not really a gaming person. I was surprised that this was in this place. He's like, where can I put the sell this or give it away? I was like, let me see it. And he wrote it. I was like, I'll take it off your hands right now.
That's awesome.
So this was a little hand-me-down, but yeah, like,
Nothing
pretty
wrong with
good and
hand-me-downs, dude.
yeah.
Nothing wrong. I'm definitely a person that if I can get something used and I know, somebody hasn't sat in it buck naked eating
Absolutely.
popcorn.
Dude, my chair, I got it refurbished, and it's one of these like Herman Miller or whatever.
Oh, dude, the
If you
Herman
buy a
Millers
new
are
one,
so
the price is ridiculous.
thousands of dollars. Yeah, dude.
I got it for like 10% of the price, and it's
really?
perfectly like in great condition. It's just refurbished.
Yeah.
You know?
Dude, Herman Miller, we used to replace him at my old business every year. And I remember I kept trying to talk my boss. I'm like, dude, seriously, the amount of money, like we're like every year, you're like, they're ridiculous for like 80 to 110 people at $1,000. It's like, what are you talking about, man? Let's just give everybody a bonus and have them buy a fucking butt pad or something.
What do you have, Carrick? What type of chair do you?
This is a Eco 2 again. I went with the Eco 2 again. I broke the last Eco 2 because originally I had hardwood floors. Then I put the carpet squares down to cut the audio noise down. But the carpet square separated and I wasn't aware. And so one day while you were in the stream, by the way, we were streaming in Discord. You were playing Persona, might have been Final Fantasy, might have been Persona. This is many months ago. And I pushed my feet back. And the fucking chair caught and snapped the back.
Snapped.
Like, yeah, because I don't get up slowly. I
Did you
do
fall
anything
back?
slow. Oh, it shattered the back. I didn't roll off. Well, I sort of rolled off, but I caught myself by putting my feet under the desk, where they stop you. Yeah. But I snapped it. Like, I mean, and because whenever I'm moving around, like I'll push, I like to, and by the way, this is me. My wife will be at work and I'll be out on my hardwood floors with the dogs, just pushing my chair like a child, rolling around for like 35 minutes because the dogs like it. We're having fun. We're playing around. I'll be like, zhoo, zhoo. But it's bad on chairs, man. Like it's like, especially when you start doing that, they're not made for that kind of stuff. They're not made for a guy to pretend like it's a wrestling mat. Not a good way to handle things. Next up for topics, actually, Anap Perna. So I did promise people we'd talk about this. Anap Perna, which the games side of Anap Perna, everybody in basically a majority of them all quit, basically walked out of their jobs because they couldn't negotiate with the person in charge of that. So it's affecting developers. It's affecting all of the people who had games that were prepping to release them through them. But I do want to point out that for the most part, this is not affecting Remedy. So Remedy had a deal with Anap Perna to do the TV shows and movies based on Control. That's currently Anap Perna Interactive. However, let's be very clear. If you're affecting an entire side of a business and it's about games, even if you have your game side somewhere else, that could have a knock-on effect where something else occurs. So we don't know what's occurring there. They stated, oh, we're fine. We're with the other part of the group. But there's been hubbub in the past that the other part of the group, they want to merge them, which would be even worse. So we just don't know what's going on there. But yeah, they all basically just walked off the job. They were like, we can't negotiate with the person who's in charge and get what we need to get. So everybody left. Dude, do we know what it pretty was? Harsh.
Like work
they
conditions?
Just said negotiate. They just said they couldn't negotiate what they needed from that person. Yeah. So
that's so radical.
If anybody knows, feel free to type it into chat.
Like almost everybody just left.
Radical is it's not even, it's well beyond that, dude. That's job. Yeah, so I don't know how unemployment happens, but it's like there's if you walk off your job there might be like some benefits you're not even getting anymore. You know, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Now, what it could also mean is that they all talked and said, let's join up. Let's go somewhere else and do our thing. So that might happen. Kid, if you were talking, somebody says you're muted. But I thought I heard him just a second ago.
No, I just mentioned
I didn't
that.
think
Like
you said
that's
anything.
crazy.
Yeah, you're
like,
good.
Yeah.
I saw something come up across my screen about Anap Perna. This was like yesterday, but I haven't been able to find it since. But I'm assuming this is what it is. I didn't realize that like happened. So just a massive quit.
Yeah. And basically, it like we don't know enough now because they haven't really gone on to say every single little thing. And I'm sure there's lawyers getting involved to make sure that a lot of whatever negotiations are still held within privacy limits and stuff like that. But yeah, it was big enough that it was just nuts that it happened. I mean, that's people need to realize like that again, it's not that they were fired. It's not that like that they're on strike. That entire group just left, which is mind-boggling to me.
It's almost unheard
that's
of.
A big deal.
Like,
it is unheard of, I think. Like at least in gaming and in the current environment, it was even more surprising to be like, wow, they all just. Which is why I said maybe there's a, you know, maybe internally they all talked and said, let's open a publishing. house
it's
over
not
here.
like
But there might be a
hey,
non-compete
listen,
clause.
we couldn't get vegan alternatives for milk, so you know, 2 people are leaving. No,
Dude, yeah. Whenever you have somebody try to tell you almond milk is milk, it's like, nah, sorry, buddy. Milk is milk. Almond milk is just squeezed up almonds. It's not milk.
At my company, there was a big hubbub because they cut out the almond milk.
You mean they removed it from like the internal
from our cafeteria and stuff? So we just have normal milk now. So
I think
now
it's
we
a
have
big
2
deal for
types.
people who are lactose intolerant, for sure.
Yeah, well, we still have 2 additional types to normal milk. So now we have 5 types of milk instead of 7. But
Okay.
still,
Okay. All right. So
come on, guys, you'll be all right.
Come on. We can work. We can work through
5 types of milk.
We can work through that. But yeah, I would say that when you go from 7 to 5, you're probably fine, unless it's beats per second, and we're talking about your heart. Then there's probably a problem. But no, I mean, dude, we at my old place, there would definitely be, you know, particular supplies that they would have, and then they would cut vendors. So it would go down at HP. They would be like, you know, you'd have a Pizza Hut inside, a Taco Bell inside. These were inside buildings. That's how big the complex was. They had restaurants in the building. And then each year, one would go away and another would go away. And then pretty soon everybody's just eating Pizza Hut, which funny enough was fine with me because I love me some Pizza Hut.
Love pizza.
Everybody else was mad because they were like, well, where are my vegan options? And I'm like, see that door that says exit? Go right out there, then get in your
Hut is
car.
great.
No, I'm just
I don't eat it often because it's pretty greasy, but I do love me some Pizza Hut, man.
Dude, what's your favorite pizza in chat? Favorite pizza? Go. Favorite pizza. Yeah, I would say with companies, man, I don't even know if most pay anymore. I know at my old job that I'm not at anymore, but the one I was just talking about, all those places shut down. They don't even have cafeterias anymore to save money. It used to be where you could go in and you would have a breakfast for free, a lunch for free, and a dinner for free because people were working so many hours. And then it just started petering away. And that's one of the things I was telling my person who works my current, the one I left after HP. I was like, watch out for one thing. If you start seeing the maintenance stuff go down, that's when the company's losing money. When you start seeing them pull back on like the status quo stuff, that's when you start getting a little worried. Tuesday donuts, no more. Start worrying. Mom and pop places that are passionate about their food, BitLyra says. Dude, come on, Bit. You like yourself some Pizza Hut. Don't lie. He's probably buying those ones 99 cents from Fred Meyer that are frozen. Putting in a microwave, rolling it up like a burrito. I've done that before. It's pretty nasty, but I'll do it. Pizza and pineapple, pepperoni. No, guys. I did say type. I mean, is there a company you like? But type is also fine. Freddy Krueger special. Just kidding. Pepperoni. Freddy Krueger special. I know what Freddy Krueger is, but I don't know what the special.
No
would
idea.
Be. Probably a dead person. Probably somebody cut up. Moving on from there. Anap Perna again left. Sucks. We'll have to see how that sort of works out. The other thing I want to give a shout out to, and yeah, I'm saying something positive about this game. It's going to happen. I'm going to say it right now. Cyberpunk. Here's a positive thing about Cyberpunk from Carrick. Mark the time. They added FSR 3 finally. with frame gen.
There you go.
That's as positive as I can be about Cyberpunk. Moving on. Whew.
You tried.
Dude, that gave me a little bit of a migraine just talking positive about that. Did you like Cyberpunk, kid? Come on, be honest. If you did.
No, I can't say I did or not, because the thing is that I got Cyberpunk right. They gave it to me when it launched, right? The day that it launched. So it was for the Xbox, but it was early in the it came out like the end of 2020, right?
Man,
so
has
I
it
tried
been that
it.
Long?
Yeah. I tried it, and I was feeling it, but the thing is, with all the hoopla was going on, I was like, I'm gonna give this some time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to like let it get its proper updates. And I literally, it's funny you bring it up. I think I reinstalled Cyberpunk along with Phantom Liberty last week to start like because I don't want to go, because since it's been so long, I got to start.
Yeah, start fresh. Yeah,
I got to start fresh, pick a new, and go on pretty much, because I think right now the game today is a lot closer to their intention
or better
than what we got, or better, than what we got in 2020. So I feel like playing it now, I would be in a position to give like a better assessment whether the game is good. I would say when I did start, I thought it was doing some intricate things, some cool things, and I understood some of the hype. I'm assuming that a lot of people who played it on PC, I know the consoles that were very rough. I was like, there's probably something good in here. I can see where it's going, but to play the product now, I think I'm anticipating a good experience. I'm very cool with Rand, and I know he did a late run of the game, and he's saying it's like one of his favorite games ever. So I usually take his word on some of the games that he plays. Randall Thor.
Why do I recognize? Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry. I don't know. I was hearing that wrong. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, but I know he recently did, and that inspired me to go ahead and download it along with like the Phantom Liberty, because I do want to dedicate, after I get through, I want to say Space Marine. I'm trying to think if there's anything. There's two games I want to try to muscle through Wukong. I don't know why I was struggling, but I am struggling. I do want to play like. Actually, oh my god, Shadow Space is coming out soon. Okay, I gotta find time to actually play. I don't know. Cyberpunk. I want to do it before the year is out though. But I don't want to play it and not be able to finish it before Shadow Space.
Well,
that's
the cool thing about it, dude, is so Cyberpunk is nowhere near what they lied about. Like, it's not that. Whatever they said it was going to be and whatever they showed, those were lies. What we got, though, and with Phantom Liberty, is a good futuristic shooter. And if you go into it with that idea, it is a very, very improved game. Very improved. And people can like it prior, but even the devs didn't think the skill systems were right because they ripped them out and put new ones in. Like, even the devs weren't agreeing with people. It's like there were definitely issues that they wanted to rebuild everything. They did a good job, a solid job. In no way, shape, or form does it remove their guilt for completely lying. But it is currently now very worth the money. And Phantom Liberty is very worth it as a DLC, which I rarely get the chance to play, or rarely get the chance to do, or even want to do, especially if the game originally burned me. But overall, just really, really improved. Really good. Did you do Phantom Liberty, Johnny?
Yeah, I'm like halfway into the content in Phantom Liberty, but I took a break from it. Yeah, it's like you say, it's a fun action game, but just don't look for, the RPG, the interaction.
Dude, it's someday, man. Someday I'm gonna get my druthers. Yeah. Someday
there's some good stuff.
Somebody's gonna do it.
Some good characters and a couple of like romantic characters you can have that are pretty well done and stuff. So.
If I ever won the lottery, and this is not a joke, I would. It would have to be a big lottery because games cost so much now. But if I ever did win the lottery, that would be the kind of game I would support. Would be a Shadowrun style Cyberpunk first-person shooter RPG in the way that the Cyberpunk devs didn't give us. It would be aimed at that intricate level of gameplay and hopefully the shooting. But they're expensive, man. Games, I mean, dude, it's ridiculous now.
Oh, yeah.
It's ridiculous, the amount of money that they had to spend and had to spend to improve it. I'm sure they would have also liked to have had it be good. Like, that's the thing, is like, I'm sure some random texture dev isn't the one who decided to sort of try to pull the wool over everybody's eyes. Yeah. The guy who's doing bushes, that's his job, bush guy, dude. I'm telling you, if I was working, I would want that as my official title. They'd be like, and you are? Oh, I'm Carrick, man. What do you do? I'm a bush guy. They're like,
God damn, get the bush guy. Bush
guy. Hey, bush trimmer, come here. I'll be like, yep. Manscaper? What? Let's see. What else is there to talk about? There was something else I wanted to mention, right? Oh, Crimson Desert. Dude, did you guys see the 50-minute video of Crimson Desert?
No, is there
I didn't see all 50 minutes of it, but I saw clips of it, and it is looking quite attractive.
It is looking like they have the bones and even more at times. You'll see, this is the thing when you know something it feels like it's on the right track. They're showing all of it without any cuts, right? That's one of the things we get with companies.
The IGN video?
Go watch the official. IGN released theirs before the main company did. I have no clue why, but the official company has a video up.
Yeah, and 50 minutes
and
of early gameplay.
It's rough at times and not rough at times, but it shows their idea, and it just basically shows them play for 50 minutes. And I got to tell you, man, there's some stuff there that's like, oh, dude, this could be good. Like, there's some awesome stuff I've seen in that game. I just, don't want to get too high on it because it could be a B-level disaster where it's all Euro jank and it feels like, you're playing a sack full of wet dicks.
Incredible, man. I'm watching this guy ride the horse and the mountains in the background there. Like,
yep, it looks
some
great.
Real depth and detail.
I cannot wait. Bep says, does Cyberpunk even have bush? Yes, maybe not on the characters, but it does out in the wildlands.
You go out to the desert, you got some
I think
bushes.
he meant bush on the chicks, but they got bush too, I think.
They probably got bush.
Because there's the sex scenes, right? Sex bot scenes. Man, it's been a while since I played the sex bot scene. Maybe I need to do that.
Panem,
Panam, she was a great character. I liked her.
Yeah, she was good.
Yeah, she was enjoyable in that. But with Crimson Desert, man, it looks good. It looks like an alpha/beta would look. There's a lot of interaction in the game, a lot of different systems going on. The riding, like you said, the horse riding, the video where they attack the giant turtle with the rocks and jewels on its back, and he's like flying around. It's in the game. Like, that's what's so great. Again, they did three full boss fights, which are about 5 to 7 minutes a piece. Then they did this 50-minute video 2 weeks later, and for the most part, it's like, boom, it's right there. And it's the great thing about it is you can see the jank, so it's real. It's like, oh, that's got jank there. That's got jank there. Collision detection's broken there. AI works there. And you can just be like, that is exactly the game they're going to try to deliver. And if so, depending on the acting, which I felt when I listened to the voice acting, it was okay to good, which I'm fine with. It doesn't need to be, triple tier level.
Kind of like Dragon's Dogma.
No, it's better than Dragon's Dogma. No, it's better than Dragon's Dogma. Yeah, sorry. No, Dragon's Dogma.
Okay, there's levels to it.
There's levels, all right. There's 0, and then there's above that. Dragon's Dogma is like a 1. Dragon's Dogma is like the voices and stuff that pretty rough.
Yeah, pretty lean.
Pretty rough. Yeah. What else have you guys been playing? Has there been any, or listen, continue talking, by the way. I'm going to ask you what you guys have been playing or what software/books, movies, or music you want to suggest as I'm letting my dog out. I'll be right back.
Cool. Kid, go first. What have you been up to? Oh, you're muted, by the way. Ciao.
Bad. Can you hear me now?
Yep. Go for it.
So I'm just going through like a list of my recents. I've been playing a bit of, there's this game called Gourd. So you're playing as
Gourd.
This like let me see if it's actually called, it's the cat on a skateboard.
That's not it.
It's Gory. My bad, not Gourd. Gory the Carnage cat. Yeah, that's
dude, I've seen this. Yeah.
The Cuddly Carnage. I played a bit of that. I've been having fun with it. Looks good. Plays good. It has like this meta that that it's funny. Like there's this moment that happens in this game where the cutscenes happening, and it sort of breaks the fourth wall because I went to go skip it. And it was like, hey, if you skip it, you're gonna miss the story. But the way they do it, they do it in such a way where it's like, okay, because you said that, incorporated this in the game, I will watch actually all the cutscenes. Yeah. So I've been working on that. Obviously, Space Marine is something that I'm actively playing. I'm gonna try out Funky Fusion. I don't know what to expect from it, but I know it's those related, like those Funko Pop toys all mashed up into a game. I've been playing Kena on Xbox. I have to pick that back up.
Kena in the Bridge of Spirits, or
yeah. I started that prior to Star Wars Outlaws coming out, and then I was able to do have review access to Star Wars Outlaws, and I kind of played that all the way through, and that kind of pretty much paused that game for me. And there's one game that this is a guilty pleasure. This game, I don't know if this is the tech demo on like UE5 or something, but is this that I went to play. It's like, it probably should have just been a demo. But I had earned some Xbox reward cash. It was like $5, and so I used it on this game. So I thought it was a cute looking platformer until I realized exactly what it was. And that game is called. I put a video up. I'm not going to recommend anybody go ahead and do it because it's not like anything innovative. Elon and the Divine Proof. It's like some guy when it's like, hey, I want to make a tech demo and I'll crank up the graphics. Is going to look cute because it's a platformer, and they did some AI generation with the cover art, which kudos to them for doing the AI, because you look at the game, you look at the cover like, oh, this is impressive, but the actual game, the character on the cover versus the character in the game are two totally different people.
Like a Blizzard cinematic.
Yeah, like completely different people. But other than that, I'm kind of like in that cycle. I was like, all right, what's going to be my next like de facto game? And that's why I'm cycling things like Wukong and Kena, but I don't feel I don't feel like I'm a need to like jump into Kena because I did that a couple years ago on PlayStation. It's just more so of just like, hey, doubling up on Xbox and see if I still like it. Space Marine is probably the game I'm likely to see through this week. The goal is to have that. It sounds from what I'm hearing between Carrot and Cohh, it's like I should have like the plan is to get it done over the weekend, like over today through like fine. Sunday. Okay. So that's going to be that's pretty much going to be the game that I pretty much spend the weekend with.
Gotcha. What about you, Johnny? Any suggestions for people? Music, movies, books, games?
So I have been reading the first book in the Harry Potter series for the first time, and it's pretty good. It's easy to read, which is nice because I'm used to reading a lot of pretty dense, like epic fantasy stuff, where you really like need to pay attention to a lot of stuff and see connections and foreshadowing and stuff. So it is nice to read something really simple to follow, but also really good, right? I mean, the story is great. It's also a good way to remind myself about the movies. I watched them when they came out like years ago. So going through them, probably gonna rewatch the movies once I read the books too. That's been good. I would say for software, one thing that has been incredible that I started using that I think you recommended, Carrick, is fan control.
Yeah, fan control is good.
And it sounds simple, but getting a good piece of software that like handles all the fans really well, and you can add like fan curves for every fan, and you have easy ways to identify which sensor is which fan in your case and everything. So you have everything organized, everything. set up, for example, based on your CPU temperature or GPU temperature, if you have fans that are like close to the GPU. So you can completely customize it. And it has changed like the noise floor of my entire PC drastically compared to what I could do with like BIOS fan curves and stuff. I highly recommend people take the time to tune that in.
That's a good one, man. Especially if you have a PC where maybe you put a couple fans in, you've replaced a video card or two, and you go into different places to figure out all the fans. You just double click fan control, and it's like, I'm going to check automatically to see if I can find all your fans. And if I can't, then you can do a manual check. It takes like 1 second. And once you get it all up and running, the curves that you can set up, what have you, it's just nice, especially if you're just one of those guys that like, you have a lot and you think it's fine, but you're noticing maybe slightly higher heat and stuff. Usually you'll find out that the interior of your system can handle some insane heat. But if you don't have to, it's good. So it's like, you know, throw a fan curve on there where maybe you don't notice it, but it's a little higher and blows some heat out. For me, so software-wise, man, dude, I have been messing around writing my own database for a PDF. So what I want is a file. I want to make a PDF. I want it to be able to see all the PDFs in a drive, and I want it to sort it, and then I want it to use OCR, the optical, you know, data recognition for the writing, to give me AI summaries of each one so I can figure out what's in each one. Because I've over the years, I've got tons of PDFs, some of them just named 123 BC. And you find out it's some D&D RPG from years ago. And could I go through them in the same amount of time? Absolutely. But I decided I'm going to take on the idea of doing this. And holy shit, let me tell you, this is why you should never always try to do stuff on your own, man. I go in there, and I'm pinging Reg a lot, you know, because Reg knows his shit. Dev guy knows his shit, you know, for programming. I'm like, dude, how do you even get a program to be able to see a Windows drive without, like, you know, one of your malware virus scanners going, hey, this database is trying to see all your files or what have you. So just trying to figure out permissions and controls and write your own stuff. It's been fun. It's been really fun. And, you know, now there's languages you can just, you know, basically drag and drop. I've been messing around with those. Those are fun. Just going around doing a bunch of stuff with the Amazon device. I'm not going to say its name because it'll respond to me. I fucked around with the skills there and made some skills that are awesome for D&D. So board games right now, it does all the turns for us, and I made my own skill. So it does the turns. It'll move the enemies. If I say, please add one AI, it'll add an AI. That AI will take its turn and tell you where to move your guy, you know, like move character 1 5 steps towards the strongest character, or the guy with the most hit points. So if you're doing a miniatures game, and then a lot of my stuff involves like trying to database all my shit, because after this many years, I have so many files. I told you I have like 19 drives. I think I have 39
so you
terabytes.
Keep all your like footage from reviews and stuff?
Yeah, that stuff I know. I know what that is. This is just living a life where you have a drive from your old PC, you move it to the new PC, move the stuff on, and it's just like you know, old copies of D&D stuff I've bought, and or stuff I've written. Because especially when you're really, at one time I was writing a bunch, so I just tons of stories, tons of shit that's in a file, and there might be 1,000 files that you have to go through, and messing around with that. Yeah, those have been fun, man. Those have been fun. But I got to hats off to any software developer out there, because, dude, jumping through hoops of just permissions and you know, all that stuff is
problem
like
solving, right? All these little practical things.
Yeah.
You run
and something will say, this will work. You know, you always have some jackass on a forum who's like, oh, some Redditor
armchair
who's like, all you got to do is do this check mark, and then you give it an elevated. And I'm like, bitch, man, I just said that in my post. I did that, and it's not working. And then Reg, I haven't asked him about this one, but I asked him about others. Reg knows enough about all the systems. I mean, that guy wrote his own firmware for a router. And by the way, Reg, I hope you're enjoying your flight to Japan. 14 hours right now. He's in the air flying to Japan. This has been, what, 3 years he's been attempting to go to Japan? And he finally went. 3 years and 2 attempted failures at learning Japanese. He finally stopped. Yeah. He told me, because I asked him, I was like, dude, how's the Japanese going? He's like, not at all. I stopped. I'm just going to use Google. He's like, he tried to learn. But yeah, it's been fun to poke around and figure that kind of stuff out. So it's been enjoyable. The other software that I will say, well, no, I don't want to give a kudo to that one yet. I like to test. Well, yeah, I will. So if anybody here upscales for thumbnails or upscales any picture, let's say you have a picture that's old. Let's say it's 480p or 720p, and you want to upscale it. Normally, you can go online, you can do these, but there's a free one on GitHub called Upscale, UPSCAYL. So it's spelled weird, UPSCAYL, and it has a shit ton of upscalers, and some of them are super powerful. It's free. It's GitHub. You go, you download it, and you just drag the thing on there, and you can have it do from 1 to like 10 in the upscale. Ooh. You can choose all kinds. And I got to tell you, for thumbnails, I'll grab a picture, I'll cut my face out to plaster it on a thumbnail, and it'll be like, oh, that's low res. Throw it in there, and primo. Good lifesaver, or a good time saver if you need to upscale something, for thumbnail or something like that. But
because when you do like background removal and stuff like that online, you usually get a low res version of the picture,
and that's what I've been doing, is getting the low res and then upscaling it.
There you go. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking of.
Thank you. Wow, because that's wow.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Is that what you've been doing too?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
By
the way, that is why I have this program, is because I type in online background remover, and you get this one that gives you a 480 or 720p download, and they do a great job, by the way. That whatever their training set is, it's fantastic.
It's way better than like what I can do with my
But you have to
software.
pay for the high res. So I was using some other one, I can't remember, but it wasn't great, but it worked. But now, upscale is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Very good software. GitHub is great for that kind of stuff if you have the
is
time.
Is it free or is it
free.
like a subscription?
Yeah, upscale's free. Yeah, it's just a GitHub.
Awesome.
Download it and you're good to go. Also, with TV shows or anything music, Dance with the Dead's got some new music out. You guys know I like them. They're normally instrumental, and they have added vocals, and I do not like it, but I would love for you guys to go check it out and see if you agree with me or not. It's weird because the entire style of the song changes. People don't realize, if you're writing music like you and I do, where it's like instrumental, you don't have to make a spot for the vocals. You don't have to make a spot for a guitar solo. You don't have to make a spot for a chorus. You're doing your own thing. And it changed the entire structure of the song. I was talking to Void about it. I was like, oh, wow. It changed the entire structure of how their songs are done, because it has to fit a vocal, the chorus, your verse, chorus, that kind of thing. But I would love to see, they got, not Opeth, they got Atreyu's lead singer to do one song, and then another pretty popular, hard. I'm not super into that kind of music, but it just, not a big fan. I'd like to see what other people think. Deagle says you can upscale the PS5 Pro for $700. Yeah, no, we'll use upscaler. What else do we got? We have anything else? Anybody in chat have anything? It's been.
I had a question I wanted to talk about. So you and I talked this week about Frostpunk 2 and how it's kind of hard to show the game in a way that's exciting for those people.
For videos.
And I've been thinking about this for a long time, actually, because it seems like every isometric type game or RTS adjacent, is kind of like that. Even ARPGs, really, like Diablo and these types of games, the experience of you playing it is much more engaging than the experience of someone watching you play it.
Especially for a review.
Yep. And this is something I found on Twitch. People told me, like, listen, man, love you, but like watching, these isometric games is just super boring. And I think there's something to that, right? It's hard to show first of all, there's not as much action because a lot of the screen is static, it's not changing. So only small elements are changing compared to like an action game or something. So I think that's part of it. But how do you approach it with your review? Are you just like changing stuff, like changing what is shown every 10 seconds or something to shake it up? Or
yeah. So just so you know, Kidsmoove, what we're talking about is like what you did Age of Mythology. You were talking about, you played that a little bit. What we were talking, what Johnny and I were talking about is trying to make a game like a Civ or whatever be exciting for a person to watch your review. And weirdly enough, those can be some of the longest reviews, because you might want to discuss, let's say you just want to give 3 Civilization examples. Well, there can be a lot of upgrades, a lot of differences. And so you could have a 15, 25-minute video, and yet what you're showing is predominantly nothing, and trying to get that on video. Dude, I don't even know. I don't know how I do it. So in particular with those games. So I cut them, I try to show, and then I go back and I look at the footage, and I sort of judge my own interest, which is probably 1/4 of what another person's is, because I put it together. So I'll watch it, and if my brain looks away, then I can usually go, around that time I need to cut, or I need to zoom in, or I need to do something. There's 2 types of editing that are big right now. You're probably already heard, it's a little bit like the positioning that Cohh was talking about. There's retention editing, and there's subscriber editing. And they are different. Retention in particular, and like the pop is every 2 to 5 seconds. And I'm going to tell you, that's an MTV video to me. That's unwatchable. That's fucking unwatchable. And for a review,
ADHD.
people. So what I do is I put a couple zooms, I put a couple cuts, and then I slowly go out, and they become longer, which unfortunately is rewarding the long-term viewer with less and the short-term viewer with more. It's sort of opposite, and I'm sure I could fix that. But it's just very difficult, man. It's very difficult. Yeah. Look at Telltale, or look at I've reviewed some visual novels, and it's like, dude, how do you? I'm not going to do a 5-minute review, otherwise that would make no sense. So it's like, how do you even put that together as a review? It's very difficult. Have you ever had to review one of these, kid? Like, have you ever put together an RTS or a city builder or a Telltale game review? Have you ever done one of those yet?
Telltale, I think I did As Dusk Falls, I believe.
As Dusk Falls. That's the driving one?
No, that was the one where it was like, it's like sort of like a storybook where is with choices. It's
wait, is that Square or Don't Nod?
It wasn't them. 13? It was Interior Night. Interior Night.
I haven't heard of that one. Okay.
It was one of like the only like Xbox like back games in like 2022. It came out in a very light year. But it was very dynamic. But if you look it up, As Dusk Falls, it was, I think I have a review on that one where it was kind of tough. It's like, well, how do you put this into, where do you do your cuts? Because there's moments, it's not like action. It's not like you're controlling the action and stuff like that. Yeah. It's just like choices. So like, what's a good point? Like, so it's like, I almost have to pick like scenes where things are going on, or I have to stop talking so people can hear what's playing out. Yeah, that's
they're my hardest. I mean, straight up.
Those are tough.
Those are tough.
Yeah, those are tough. Yeah, that was probably, I wouldn't say the closest to a Telltale where you literally have, well, at least Telltale, you have some action you can do it, but it's very slow.
Movement or something.
Yeah, this one is like kind of like, it's almost like storybook the way that they had it, and so you really can't. And that's hard. So I don't even know how good of a job I did. I was like, is this watchable?
Right.
Probably not.
Yeah, dude, they're tough as hell, man. That's the thing. And when I say tough, I'm not talking about I'm in war. So we know that people have a tougher life. I know that reviewing isn't war. What I mean by tough is that I'm trying to make sure the person, at the very least, is hearing what I'm saying and not wanting to die inside, and then see something slightly interesting. But the big thing too is if a game is a bunch of text, it can be very difficult not to spoil stuff in those games, because they'll blurt it out. Like even a character's name might be a spoiler because maybe that character changes or becomes something else, or they become the bad guy. And you're like, well, I can't do that. I can't show the...
Yeah, or a big thing you can do, like, sending to mines, or like doing...
Yeah, it's tough. Sometimes I'll be honest. Sometimes if I look at the game and I'm like, I can't do. For example, I tried to review Monster Truck Jam, a game I liked.
Yeah.
And I couldn't. It's an arcade racer, so it was very hard to put anything other than just the racing, because you didn't really adjust the trucks very much, but it was very fun, and I thought it deserved it. So I honestly did a short, and I told the company, I was like, listen, this doesn't fit 25 15 to 25 minutes, because that's what I usually feel for, like, let's say you're reviewing a $40 game. If you're not giving it, 12 plus minutes of your time, then the person may not know enough to know if that's worth that. And I feel like that's a good time limit for me. So yeah, I just did a short. I was like, okay, sorry, I'm going to do a short on this one. It's just not working out. That one worked, but they're hard, man. They're really hard. Like those are the ones that cause me to think the most. When you got a fighting game, dude, if you got a fighting game, you can, there's thousands of ways to cut the footage. There's thousands of ways to get footage. There's like when you and I did Warhammer, I'm like, Johnny, give me your footage. I'll take my footage. We'll have all these different bits of footage. By the way, Dusk Falls, I reviewed as well. I know the game you're talking about. It was, by the way, that's the game I've been talking about this entire time. And for whatever reason, I didn't know we were talking about the same game. Yeah, that one's tough. Yeah, those kind of games, when it's like a shooter action, RPG can be tough because it can be what's called numbing, where somebody, the term, but I'm saying that term is actually used where the viewer is just seeing the same style of action all the time. So you have to zoom in. I do like to do zoom ins on, so if a class has stat changes, personally for me, I just, I know the Fextra Life guys, and they, when I saw their stuff, they would zoom in on, let's say, the character sheet. And once I started doing that, I'm like, oh, okay, that's a good break, because it's like nothing's moving for 4 or 5 seconds. Maybe I zoom into the strength, dexterity. Ooh, lost a light. Strength, dexterity, blah, blah, blah. That person can see that, and it's a break for them. But yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough to do those. Very tough. What else do we got? What are we at? We're at 150. How long have we been going? 3 hours and 20 minutes. Holy shit. We went a while. What else do you got going on, kid? Is there any topics you want to bring up? I want to make sure that we don't just talk about the shit that like Cohh and I brought up. Was there any?
No,
on Johnny?
I thought you had like some great topics. Like I said, obviously this was a big week for the PlayStation Pro. I don't know. There's obviously layoffs that were announced. Was it yesterday at Microsoft?
Right. I forgot.
650 people. They made it. I don't know. Maybe you have more on why they mentioned, because it looked like they wanted to clear, like, hey, this doesn't impact any upcoming releases or studio closures. Usually they don't put that out there, but they made it a point to say that in this case. And I just would want to know if you had any insight on why was that like a highlight.
Honestly, I think it's just to try to, be like, this one doesn't involve a closure. It did involve the reducing of the mobile game, I believe, Call of Duty. It involved that, and I think rightfully so. From what they said, it wasn't doing well, and they were like, we're moving things around. But yeah, I would say that they did do that. And by the way, that they will not be the only ones to do that. You're going to start seeing that more and more. I'm going to plug this light back in. You're going to start seeing companies doing those kind of events or doing those kind of topics and making it clear to people. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Yep.
Dude, my breaker went off over there. Dude, that's why having a UPS saves your day. I got a UPS and it worked. I think a lot of companies, if they can clarify things, they're going to want to. I think that's pretty normal to try to be a little clearer on stuff, because it's bad news no matter what. Like, for that, especially for Microsoft, they're under the lens. Do you know who's not under the lens? Nintendo. Nintendo doesn't even feel like they're a part of the convo yet.
Yeah.
Nintendo hasn't even shown up for the race, dude. I don't know what's going on with those guys, man. I just want to see their shit. I want it ASAP. Do you have a handheld, by the way, Smooth?
Yes, Rogue Ally.
One or the new one?
No, this is the first generation. I contemplated upgrading, but then I don't use this one enough to warrant an upgrade.
Makes sense.
So I was like, I should be fine for what I got. But for what I do use it on, it works wonders. I don't get overzealous with it. I download handheld appropriate games for it. Yep. I'm not gonna try to run Starfield or anything like that on it. I will do like the smaller stuff that come out that makes sense and whatnot, things that aren't too heavy. And it did actually help me get through, get more games or more types of games in my library. during those downtimes to play. So I've gotten through actually a couple. Actually, you know, a game I did on this, I did Cocoon, the full playthrough.
Oh, Cocoon.
Yeah, on that, and I was very proud of that. But the Rogue Ally, I thought about. I didn't want to go too crazy, but it just for a moment, these handhelds, I felt like they were coming like every other month. You have the Legion Go, you had like the Claw, and then obviously the Steam Deck and stuff. But the Rogue resonated with me. I like Asus's products a lot. So, but yeah, I've been very comfortable with this one. I don't know what the upgrades is. I know they're for the X in terms of, did they improve battery life? Like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. I mean, and battery life's probably the main thing. I think it's a mid step. It's like the Pro kind of, well, less than the Pro, but you get my drift. And I think we'll see, you know, in the next year or so, we'll see more companies coming out with battery saving, you know, trying to figure out form factors. Every one of them has a form factor issue of some kind, because I've got most of them or have had hands-on for the preview products, and most of them have some issue. And so, and I'm sure at some point we're going to get one that's like that, pretty good all around one, that's battery power, the power of the system itself, the battery lasts a long time, controllers feel good. You get, for example, I really was not at all a fan of the ROG because of the hardware issues that were notorious, but also because of the speaker placement, because my hands would cover the speakers. Yeah. Then the Legion's got ones that go up, so that's their own problem. You know, they go up, not at you, so you hear them less. So all of them have an issue, and and then battery's the main one. You know, and it will take a while. We'll see efficiencies. I do some tricks on the Legion, for instance, like park some cores in a game that doesn't need them, and you can greatly extend battery life doing that. There's different little tricks you can do. FSR is great for those devices. Like FSR is liquid frames from AMD is fantastic. You know, you can get really good frame rates on those devices. I played Space Marine on it. I played Black Myth on it. Legion. I played Black Myth and Space Marine. A bunch of games on those. I've been really happy with it. I do a lot of streaming to the device from the PC though. That's probably my main use. And once you figure out how to stream from your Xbox to your Legion or ROG, or your PlayStation to your Legion or ROG, or your PC to it, it just explodes. Because I was telling Johnny, it's changed the way I review. I won't ever review graphics that way. But if I need to grind something, dude, being able to lay down or sit in the living room, TV show's on, my wife's doing it, and I need to do some mechanic stuff and just sort of check stuff that isn't going to be impacted by the form factor, I will do that. And it has been a lifesaver. It has really been useful. Like, it's been a huge bonus for me. Johnny, did you ever get one?
Nope. I have a Steam Deck.
Oh, you got a Steam Deck. Okay, so you got one.
That's it.
Yeah. OLED.
Yeah, it's the OLED.
Better screen.
I haven't tried any of the streaming stuff.
Really?
I think I would need to set up Windows on it. Potentially. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into it.
Yeah, I can't remember if Moonlight or Moonbeam, Moonlight. Oh, you know me. I'm going to mess that name up every time. Yeah. But no, they're very cool for that kind of stuff. And it's great. You know, I may have my own likes and dislikes for them, but the fact is that they're all there, and that's awesome that you can do it, whether it be a ROG, whether it be a Claw. People were complaining about the Claw because it is low powered. Yeah. And
that's the MSI one, the Claw. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't love it, but the fact that you can still stream to it, and this is why I was telling people, if you want to just stream, don't even look at any of what we're talking about. There's like Chinese ripoffs that you can get that are running Windows. As long as it can run Windows and GeForce Now, you're set. Like, you can do insane stuff with GeForce Now and streaming from your home console. That's the other cool thing. You just might want to play a console. You might want to play a game that like is backwards compatible. There's not a Windows emulator, whatever. And you're just like, it's on my Xbox. Turn on your Xbox, stream to your device, and
so PS5 has the remote thing.
PS5
right?
has the remote, and you can also use that Chanky or whatever it is. It's called like Chanky or Chankai. Somebody can correct me in chat. That is a app from somebody else, and the Xbox also has an app from somebody else. Both of them better than the official ones, by the way, which is ridiculous, but they're both better than the official ones, and it's great, man. I think that's a boon, and I can't wait to see how Nintendo does it, because Nintendo needs. That's one of the things I'm going to be looking for is Nintendo understanding that people might be using these devices. Finn Rosell says Chaki, Chiaki. Yeah. Oh, and I've got the G Cloud. Yeah, that thing is amazing, man. The G Cloud is weirdly enough way better than I expected that damn device to be.
I've been interested in that for a while. I've never got it, but I just wanted to hear more hands-on impressions with it. You like the G Cloud? Like,
so it's so light, and the screen is magnificent for not being OLED. That's the thing that the first time I turned it on, I was like, whoa, that is not what I expected. So it's got a phenomenal screen, super light. You got a button to switch between Android and between, well, it's both Android, but you have a front end that's a little bit like, let's say, game mode on your Steam Deck or something. You know, it's got this front end. But you can go to Android and run any Android stuff on it, which is also good because then you can hack stuff and get things running better. You can adjust stuff via the Android side. The only problem, I don't know about you, kid, so with handheld devices, they have a tendency to have short sticks. So the the stick is like this short. Legion is good. But the G Deck is a couple millimeters lower. And so I feel weird playing some games. Like, for example, some shooters never feel like they do on the Legion. There's a movement restriction. There's something about the movement feels tighter than it should be. And that I have to turn up the sensitivity just enough that then I'm overshooting people. And so some games, depending, Cyberpunk I beat on the G Deck finally, but it was definitely a study in tenacity versus just true entertainment. I did have some issues with that. That was the only issue. And it's not every one of them. It seemed to be Cyberpunk. I don't know if you've ever gone into Cyberpunk's options. You're going to do that now that you've downloaded the game. Cyberpunk has an advanced setting for gamepads. It is ridiculous how many options they have. And there's probably an option in there that would fix it, but I've gone in and adjusted curves, raw input, everything, and I could never get it just right. But still, phenomenal device, man. I mean, you know, they're all going on sale. I would also say anybody who's thinking about these, never buy it full price. All of these go on sale. Every one of these devices go on sale. Jesus, the Legion was like $400 during Christmas. There were people, there's like a Best Buy here that had 150 off or something. And I was like, I almost want to buy a second one. I could just sell that thing, you know? So do you guys ever use the touchpads on the Steam Deck? Do you ever use the,
you know, I wish I did. I love the feedback, the haptic on it.
Right.
But in every single game that I've played, it's been less optimal than the stick itself.
I agree. I've the one on the Legion. It's got one under the right. And no matter what I do, it's really only there for Windows. If I want to do something in Windows. And I have it set, I have Windows set up to be big. So with Windows, I just literally never ever use it because I just bloat Windows up so it's big and I just click things.
Yeah.
So it just works. It just, as Todd would say, it just works. But yeah, man, it's phenomenal. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome to see, you know, what I hope Nintendo realizes what's going on. And I hope Sony patches the portal. Sony needs to patch the portal's bitrate. And if they do, that'll be a win. And Sony needs to add cloud streaming to that fucking device. The idea that device just streams to the device from the PlayStation and doesn't even do the cloud, their own cloud service, is like brain dead, man.
Yeah, it's insane, man.
Anything else? Got a free Nintendo Switch for switching internet providers, the Deagle says. What? No shit. Got a free Nintendo Switch for switching. What internet provider gives you a Switch?
And you must have signed like a crazy monthly.
Yeah. Better watch out. Better count your kids, dude, because there's high chance Comcast just stole one of your children. I mean, I've never heard of a company giving away. I mean,
yeah, that's crazy.
That is dope. As somebody said, that's dope. It is.
Dope.
Before we wrap this up, I want to say thanks to everybody who shows up to watch these podcasts. I know we switched. I know it's difficult to find us at times. We'll work on it. Thanks to Johnny, as always, for showing up and powering through these. Silver will be on next week. When it comes to the Wednesday podcast, I'm still trying to figure out how to go about all this, especially because we're now in review season. So adding one more thing that takes up 3 or 4 hours has been quite difficult, but we'll do it soon. And then I want to check first with Kid, what is next on your channel? Anything to pimp out? Anything that you got rolling in the back of your brain that you want to create for your channel?
Oh man, I need to put content there, but it's probably going to be either a video on a game. Like I said, I'm gonna give this. Like I said, this is one of those guilty pleasures. The Funko Pop game that came out. I'm gonna give it a try, see what it's about, and probably put some content out on that.
Awesome.
I'm obviously gonna be doing some Space Marine. My computer's set up so I can stream on my side, so that's also gonna be taking place. But yeah, the only other thing is hopefully Dead Rising. That I'm looking forward to that. That's this month. So I Dead Rising is one of my favorite franchises. So I'm looking forward to DR, and hopefully I can put out some content on that over the course of the thing within a week or so.
Very cool. What about you, Johnny? I know you're not streaming anymore, but you got anything like amazing going on next week?
Secretly, I have been working on a secret YouTube channel.
Oh shit!
Secret YouTube channel.
Should we not? Should we not?
It is about League of Legends, so I'll say that.
Oh damn! A League of Legends channel.
Dedicated. I'm making daily.
He's gone full nuts, people.
Full nuts. It's called Johnny Plays Garen. Garen is one of the champions in League of Legends. The one that I main. So every day there's a Garen video. So it's like every day a different matchup, right, against another champion and stuff, simply because I enjoy doing it. There's something about narrating the game that's compelling to me, and it's been a fun project. But yeah, just that's really what I've been up to, and just enjoying Space Marine 2 with you guys in Discord.
Yeah, it's been so good, man. Yeah, Space Marine's been fun. That's it for us, everybody. Peace out. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I hope all of you become better people, frankly, and find better things to do than to watch us. No, actually, I don't. I hope all of you guys don't become better people and you show up next Friday. Love you all. Peace out.
True. Cheers.
That was awesome.